Right. So the idea is, so we are going to quickly cover the syllabus. So I am not going to cover entire things. So this is your syllabus. So we will be covering professional communication, teamwork concepts and issues, social context of computing. We will not be covering intellectual property today, right? Legal issues of computing we will touch little bit, but not everything, right? Because that legal things I am going to take separately. Organizational context we are going to cover. Professional and ethical issues we are going to cover. We are not going to cover history of computing and privacy and civil liberties. But anyway, this I am not going to do everything because this is a very quick revision only. So we have done all those topics in the regular class. So this is just a big overview only, right? So don't expect me to cover entire syllabus within 3 hours or just 5 hours. Okay. This is just for you to quickly prepare for the examination. But anyway, I will be covering most of the aspects in professional communication, teamwork, social context, organizational context, professional ethics, right? And if we have time, we will do few past paper questions as well on these topics. And in the next topic, we will be next session we will be covering the legal aspects more and the civil liberties, etc. Together with more past papers. Okay, right? So I hope you got the plan. Right. So let's start without wasting any time. Right. So this subject is for you to be a professional, right? So this is not a technical subject. So you have different type of subjects. You have the technical subjects, right? Technical. You have some conceptual subjects like software engineering, project management, fundamentals of management. Technical subjects like programming, web development, networking. So this is a completely different, and of course you have the mathematics also for increase your logical thinking, etc. So this is a completely different subject. Professional issues. Actually, your subject name is professional issues, but the real name should have been professional practice. In the new syllabus, they have changed the name from professional issues to professional practice because this the name of professional issues is very negative. So it looks like you are talking about your issues. No, actually we are not going to talk about your issues. We are going to talk about how the IT people have to practice their profession. Okay, so that is why we have all those topics. So we will be covering some competencies that IT professional need to have, like professional communication, teamwork, etc. Then how we expect IT professionals to work in an organization, right? Business organization, how we expect IT professionals to behave in the society, right? And of course, his professionality, like how he is going to handle ethical issues, right? So how he is going to take responsibilities, right? Then we will be discussing some legal things like intellectual property laws, uh, computer crimes, and also we will be discussing some social related things like privacy, civil liberties, etc. Because we are now living in the information era. So therefore, the leadership will be taken by naturally IT people, right? Not by anyone else. So therefore, we want IT people to aware about these things so that they can raise their concerns. They can take the leadership in these aspects as well. Okay. Right. So now I hope you got the big picture. So this is completely different subject. You are not supposed to memorize much. There are a few things you are supposed to memorize. Very few things. Overall, you must get the actually in the exam. What will be checked is whether you are ready to be a professional or whether you have the professional mindset. Right. If you have a professional mindset, you can answer some of the questions of, and there are some questions by just memorizing things also you can answer, but there is good part of questions just to check whether you have understood or you have you got that mindset, right? Have you got that mindset? Okay, right. So just 1 minute. Right, so let's start. Right, let's start. So if you have any questions at any time you can raise. Okay, at any time you can raise it. Right, so let's start the topic. Okay. Right, so I just changed the name also from professional issues to the professional practice because I prefer this name rather than just saying professional issues. Okay, right. So let's start with who is a professional, right? So there are different ways people look at professionals. There's a traditional view as well. We are not going into that traditional view of who is a professional. We are going to look at the modern view of who is a professional. Okay. So professional is a person who is qualified and practice his or her work professionally. So that's all. Okay. So anyone, right, anyone, if he is qualified to do that particular task, and he is practicing his task, his or her task professionally, he is a professional. So I know that there is a traditional view of professionals, like only doctors are professionals, only engineers, accountant, those are professionals, others are not professional. No, there is no such. Our community is now completely different. We are now living in a different world. So that is 1970s, 1980s view. So a modern view is, if anyone is practicing his profession professionally, and if he is qualified, he is a profession, right? He is a professional. Okay. So even a carpenter is a professional, right? Even a hairdresser is a professional, right? So as long as he is practicing his professionally, he is a professional. Okay. So now we have nothing called professional jobs and non-professional jobs. Only thing we have is, we have professionals and non-professionals. Anyone who is not practicing that professionally, he is not a professional. Even if he can be a doctor, he can be an engineer, he can be a lawyer, if he or she is not practicing properly, he is not a professional. Okay. At the same time, maybe he is a chef. As long as he is practicing it professionally, he is a professional. Okay. So that is the first thing you have to understand, what is mean by professional. Okay. Right. So some attributes of a professional. So professionals must be qualified to do his or her work, right? So qualified in the sense, if there is any knowledge to be gained, he must have got it. If there are any skills, competencies needed, that must be there, right? If there are any other things that needed to practice that profession, he must have it. So that is called qualified, right? So for example, that is why you are also learning for BIT. So that is to get that qualification to become a IT professional. So just because you got the degree or whatever, it doesn't mean you are a professional. Just you have got the qualification, right? So that is just one aspect of being a professional, getting qualified. Okay. So then he or she must be practicing the his profession in a professional way, right? So just practicing is one thing, practicing it in a professional way is a different thing. Okay. So what is mean by practicing your work professionally? It means you respect integrity, you have due respect for the respecting other people, empathy. So if you are having those qualities also, we say that you are practicing your work professionally. Anyway, we will be dig into these things in details later. Okay. So then if you are a professional, you held some responsibilities and accountability, right? So you take those responsibilities, and also you are held for those accountabilities, right? So we will discuss those things also later. Okay. Optionally, professional can be a member of a professional body, right? So that is optional. There are some professions where it is sort of mandatory, right? So if I just mention two of those professions in Sri Lanka and most of the countries, that is being a doctor or medical professional and being a lawyer. So there you must be a member of a professional body, right? So otherwise they will not allow you to practice your profession. But there are again lot of debates about that also, right? We will get back to that later. But other than those, and of course there are some situations, accountant, right? If because there is some legal binding when it comes to public quoted company, some started accountant has to sign that accounts. So there are that kind of situations where accountants also, some accountants, they are part of the professional bodies, because otherwise they can't take some approve some of those things, because they are bounded by some legal aspects. But when it comes to all the other professions, it's sort of optional, right? Especially engineering, it is optional, right? Software engineering, IT field, it's 100, it's purely optional. Actually, very few number of IT professionals become members of the professional bodies. That is the same for the most of the engineers as well. Okay, so this is a different field. This is not doctors. This is not lawyers. This is different field. This is very open field. This is very competitive field. So therefore, it is optional thing, right? It is optional thing. Okay, right. So now let's move on to the attributes of these little bit one by one. So let's start with qualification or qualified. So if you want to be a professional, you must be first qualified. So why you want to be qualified? Then you gain your knowledge, right? So for example, if you want to be a software engineer, unless you have that knowledge of programming, handling databases, right, user interface designs, you are not going to be a you are not going to practice it properly, right? So not only knowledge, you have to get your competencies, skills, and very importantly, you must have that professional attitude. So that is why basically you have this particular subject, right? So to give you the knowledge, competencies, there are so many other subjects. So why you have this particular subject is about 80% giving you that professional attitude, right? So think like a professional, right? So it's a different way, right? You can't just take things very casually when you are having a lot of responsibilities. Okay, so that is why we need qualified people entering into this profession. Okay, so then different professions demand different levels of qualifications, right? For example, there are some professions where the minimum sort of a requirement is a degree, right? For example, doctor, right, engineer, IT professionals also, that is the case in these days, right? So because these are very complicated things, a lot of responsibilities are there, but there are some professions where it is not a degree, maybe just a certificate level or diploma level. If you take something like a chef, right, maybe a carpenter, right? So these people are also professionals, but they don't need basically a degree or whatever, but maybe different levels of qualification, but they must have a qualification so that they can practice it properly, right? So why we need a qualification? There are so many reasons. First thing is it will build confidence for the particular person, right? So the professional, the person himself will get that confidence because okay, I have learned these things, I have passed these exams, etc. Not only you get the confidence, it will build confidence on your employer, your clients as well, right? So when someone says I have a degree in IT, so the client will be much more confident to give you some tasks, right? So maybe it is software development, maybe it is some networking tasks, right? So that build confidence on your customer and your employer, right? So that is why they prefer to hire person with some qualification, right? So that is also important, right? So likewise, so qualification is important for a professional. Okay, right? So then, not just because you are qualified, it doesn't mean you are professional. You must practice it professionally, right? You must practice your task or work professionally. Then only we say you are a professional. Okay. So what are the things that we expect from you or from any professionals in general, right? So in general, we expect, regardless of whether you are IT professionals or medical practitioner or legal practitioner, we expect high quality of work, right? High quality of work is expected, right? So then we expect high productivity, right? So from professionals we expect high productivity, and also we expect that if you are a professional, you take a lot of responsibilities and accountability, right? So that is the expectation of the society, that is the expectation of the others, right? So if you are a professional, you must take responsibility of your actions and all the decisions you have to take, right? So then you practice your job or your profession legal and ethical manner, right? So you don't do any illegal things, you don't do any unethical things while you are practicing your profession. So those are the things, some basic things we expect when we say someone is practicing professionally, right? So he has, his work is really high quality, his productivity is really high, right? So he take responsibility of whatever he is doing, and also he take the accountability. We will discuss those concepts later. He is doing things in a legal way, he is a very ethical person, right? So then we say he is practicing the profession in professional way. Okay, in professional way. Right. Now let's look at different aspects of a professional's life. Right. So of course every profession has a personal life. Right. So every professional is also a living being. So he has his personal life. So we want every professional to be a very successful in his personal life. So that means all of your, not only your career objectives, your personal objectives has to be fulfilled as part of your life. So that is called personal context. Anyway, we are not going to cover it as our subject because that is your personal things, but we are going to cover some other things, right? So we are going to cover the organizational context, because most of the professionals will be working for a particular organization. Unless you are a entrepreneur, or even if you are entrepreneur, you are sort of a contributing organization. Unless you are an independent practitioner like freelance developer, you will be working for organization, right? Or you will be contributing to organization. So therefore we have a separate topic called organizational context. We are going to discuss how a professional must behave in a organization. Okay, so then we have social context, so the national context. So that is in general in society, what kind of behavior we expect from IT professional, right? What kind of behavior we expect from IT professional, because IT professionals have better understanding or better visibility about the things that is happening in the information era, right? Because now people are heavily using information technology, internet, social media. So IT people have better visibility of how the things are happening, what are the possible things that can go wrong, what are the possible bad things happening. So we expect IT people to actively contribute their knowledge. So that is why we have the social or the national context. Actually you have another topic called in your syllabus, social context in information technology. Then we have the global context, that is you are also a human being, you are also human in the world, right? So therefore you must aware of the global trends, right? Global issues like environmental issues, uh, war, peace, that kind of things in your paper most of the time, right? So they ask questions on that also, right? They are heavily interested in especially the pollution and those kind of things. So are you aware of those things? What kind of things IT professionals can do to reduce those kind of issues, right? So those kind of questions are there, right? So like green computing, how to reduce, uh, how to do proper, how to use the IT infrastructure to reduce pollutions, etc. Okay, so now you have to look at like this. So personal context, organizational context, social context, and global context. Okay, so that is what what we are going to cover, some of those contexts in this session itself. Okay, right. So we are not going to discuss about the personal context. You know that as a successful professional, you must have your personal life, right? You must have your family, friends, leisure, health, right? So you must take care of yourself. So that is called personal context. So you must not conflict your professional life with your personal life. Actually, that is a big issue when it comes to IT professionals, because IT people are heavily in a very demanding area, especially software developers and even tech people like network engineers, system engineers. They have to sometimes work extra hours, right? So they have to work with a lot of stress at a time. So therefore, you have to make sure that you take care of yourself, you take care of your health, you take care of your family members, loved ones. You have enough leisure and etc. So that is personal context. Okay, so that is your personal commitment. So don't think that IT is only your life. Okay, right? So we are not going to discuss much about that, right? Then you have the organizational context. So organizational context means most of the time you will be working for an organization, right? Unless you are a freelance developer, right? Unless you are a freelance developer, there are only very few number of freelance developers, right? Maybe just about maybe 10% or little less than 10%. And other 90% of the people are working for a business organization, right? So you must know how a business organization work, right? So then only you can contribute to the organization. If you are contributing to the organization only, the organization is going to be a success. Then only you are going to get more and more benefits, right? So therefore, we will be discussing the organizational context later, right? So things like your business contributing to the business success, policies and procedures, the, 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 the need for teamwork. So we have to discuss, we will be discussing those kind of things later. Okay, so that is organizational context. Then we have the social or country or national context, right? Social or country or national context where you have to contribute to the economy, right? So that is why you want to get qualifications. That is why you want to be a professional. You don't want to be a burden to the country, right? So you want to be a resource to the country, right? So there you can create wealth. You can create some services, products, right? Then we want you to be a legal and ethical person, right? Legal and ethical person, if you are a professional, right? So we don't want you to take bribes or be a part of the corruptions or whatever, right? Then there are some other things like when you see something is not properly working, or maybe within your organization, maybe organization is involving in some unethical things, maybe illegal things, so you have to sometimes you have to speak up, right? So that is called whistleblowing. So you have sort of separate subtopic on whistleblowing as well. So how when to do those things, right? How to do those things and stuff like that. We will be discussing those when we are doing some other topics later on. Okay, so that is social context. You must have some social responsibilities as well as a professional. Especially from professionals, we expect more contribution to the social context, right? Because they are people who have some knowledge, who have some exposure, right? So they can voice when they have, especially in IT era, right? So in the era of IT people have more voice power, right? IT people have more voice power. Therefore, they have to use it for the betterment of the society. Okay, so and we will be discussing more onto that later. This is just setting up the big picture, right? So then we have the global context, right? So the things like the pollution, so the environmental well-being, the social justice, the peace. So those kind of things also we need some contributions from professionals, and especially IT professionals, because they are heavily involved in developing information systems, and also they are heavily involved in works related to social media, internet, etc. So we expect IT professionals to be aware of these issues and contribute to your knowledge, contribute using your knowledge and any other competencies you have. Okay, right. So that is why in the paper sometimes they ask that kind of questions. Especially they are really the exam paper is really interested about the pollutions and how to prevent those things and how to use ICT to in that kind of situations. Okay, right. Right. Now let's again revisit what is mean by, or what are the attributes of a professional, because at the end of this subject you must have that attitude of a professional, right? So that is the main objective. Forget about the exam, right? If you are a professional, you are a resource to the society, right? If you are a professional, you are not a burden. You are a real resource. You are a problem solver. You are creating wealth to the society, right? So we always telling that Sri Lanka is a developing country. Sri Lanka is a developing country. We have a lot of debts and blah blah blah, right? Yes, someone has to take that responsibility. So as professionals, we should be able to reverse it. First, don't be a burden to the economy, right? So you must create wealth, right? If you are working for a say foreign country, foreign software development country, sorry, foreign software development, right? Organization, you are. So just 1 minute. Right. So, for example, if you are working for a foreign country, you are getting foreign exchange for the country, right? So likewise, so you can be a real resource to the country, right? So now let's see what are the attributes we expect from professional. So the first attribute or the most important attribute is competency, right? So that is the most important one. Unless you are a competent person, you can't do anything else, right? So it doesn't matter whether you are ethical person, legal person, right? You respect others, you are a good team player, but if you can't say you are, if you are a software engineer, if you can't code, no point having any other things, right? If you are a network engineer, if you can't figure it out how to troubleshoot, if you can't design a network, no point having any other things. So therefore, number one for being a professional is have the competency, right? Have the competency, then only you can contribute, right? Then only you can contribute to the organization, then only you can contribute to the your team, right? So then everyone is going to like you, everyone is going to look for you, right? Because they know that you are really good resource person, you are really good problem solver, you are really good at developing things, right? So then only then they are going to look for you, right? So therefore, number one is competence, right? So it is not number two or number three. Number one is build your competencies, right? So not only knowledge, competencies. So competency means you can do things, right? So other than that, we expect you to be a ethical and legal minded person, right? So that is also important, we will be discussing that later. Then integrity also we expect, right? So that is, integrity means in a way honesty, but it's more than honesty. Integrity means moral uprightness, right? Moral uprightness means you are not going to compromise your values, right? So you are not going to compromise your values even in difficult situations. So that is called integrity. So we will be discussing that also later. Then we will be discussing responsibility and accountability also later. So responsibility means you can take responsibilities, right? So when your organization want to build a soft information system for a client, you can, when you are assigned that task, part of the task, the company can expect that yes, he is going to do this, right? So that means you are a responsible person. But if you can't fulfill that job, then you can't take responsibilities, right? So then actually, so the one reason might be your competence issue, or maybe your attitude issue, you don't want to work. So likewise, if you have other things, only you can take the responsibilities, you can take the accountability, right? So then you must have some other attributes as well, right? Especially the respect, right? So you have to respect your fellow team members, you have to respect the client, right? So that even we have seen that, right? Some people, they don't care about others, right? So they don't respect others, right? So we expect, as a professionals, we expect you to respect others, right? So especially the client and your fellow team members, because these people have different issues, right? At different time, different peoples go through some difficulties. So you have to look at them, you have to respect their feelings and stuff like that. Okay. So then the teamwork. So unlike most of the other professions, teamwork is critical for IT professionals, right? But if you take something like a lawyer, 99% of the time he will practice his profession as a single person, right? So he will take the responsibility of a case, he will just work as a single person, right? Even doctor, right? So if he is a general practitioner, right, so he is just working his own, right? So look at all the specialist doctors, etc. He is his own, right? So they don't have to do much of a teamwork, unless it is a very complicated situation or something like a carrying ICU patient or doing an operation. Yes, then it is a teamwork, right? But those are special cases, right? Still you can survive without doing teamwork. But when it comes to software development, 90% of the time it is teamwork, right? Because developing software is highly complicated thing. One person can't do that kind of a complex software development, and also maintaining IT system for organization. One person can't do that, right? If it is a bank or something, you have set of or team of people taking care of that. So therefore, you must be a really good team player. So that is why you have separate topic called team building or teamwork, right? So likewise, if you have these competencies, if you are aware of these things, the demand and the need, then you will be a really good person, right? Really good professional IT professional. Okay, right. Now let's little bit look at, because we are not talking about the legal, ethical, etc. We are going to look at what is mean by those terms. What are those terms means? Okay, so let's first look at the term law or the legal, right? So then on top of that we have the term ethics. On top of that we have the term morals. So the first thing in understanding your rest of the syllabus is understand what are those terms are mean. Those terms mean. So these are related but somewhat different terms. Okay, so let's take one by one, starting with law or the legal aspects. Okay, because you have two topics related to law, that is intellectual property laws, and also you have the computer crimes, right? So everywhere they are talking about different acts, different laws, what are the penalties, so you are getting for the offences, etc. So therefore, first we must in general understand what is meant by law or what is meant by legal aspects. Okay, right. So legal or law aspect mean, so basically law means a system of rules that tells us what we can and what we cannot do. So basically it says what we can do as a citizen in a country, what we are not supposed to do, right? So that is called law, right? So it is driven by fear or punishment, right? So when you have law, if someone break it, there is some sort of punishment, right? So there is some sort of punishment. There is I have you will not see any law and there is no punishment, right? So everywhere when there is a law, if you break it, there is a punishment. Of course, it is up to the courts to give that punishment or not, but that punishment is there, right? Maybe the courts may decide that okay, this is the first time you did this. This is not very serious. You have done it. Therefore, we will not punish you at that point, but every law has some sort of a punishment specified. Okay, so therefore laws are sort of driven by fear, right? Fear. So because people fear of those things, they tend to not to break those things, right? Not to break those things. Okay, and also law or legal things are enforced by courts, or we call it judiciary system, right? So this enforcement is supported by police and other government institutes. So if it is something like that, we say it is legal thing or judiciary or the law related to law, right? So the things that you have to remember is those are the rules that specifies what you can do and what you can't do. It is driven by fear and punishment, enforced by the courts or judiciary, and also supported by other government institutes. So that is called law, right? So if you are breaking law, you have to be really serious. You may end up with some sort of a legal proceedings, right? Some sort of legal proceedings, especially when you are a professional. You have to take a lot of responsibilities, right? So contractual obligations, laws, and etc. And also some things related to privacy, right? Financial transactions, etc. Therefore, you have to be aware of those aspects, because one of the key aspect in law is you can't go to the courts and say I was not aware of that law. So that is never going to accept it, right? So that statement has no value when you go to the courts, right? If you had to go to the courts, you can't say I was not aware of that, right? So that is not going to be accepted. Okay, so therefore you have to aware of the things that is related to your profession, right? Related to your profession. Right. Then we have two type of judiciary systems called the criminal law and the civil law. So in your syllabus, especially the Computer Crimes Act is a criminal under criminal law. But if you take something like intellectual property laws, like copyright laws, patent laws, etc., so those are pretty much civil law, right? So now you can see there are two type of laws or law systems called criminal law and civil law, right? So when it comes to criminal law, it is related to a criminal activity. So, or if the activity is related to a criminal case, it will be handled by criminal law, right? So the examples are murder, terrorism, assaults, illegal drug related things like drug trafficking, burglary. So those things are in general covered by criminal law, right? So those activities are considered as criminal activities, right? So in that case, those cases are handled by the government or the police, right? So of course, if there is a burglary in your house, right? So you have to go and report it to the police, then police is going to do the rest of the stuff, and they are going to handle the case also, right? They are going to handle the case. You just have to go and give your witnesses or your evidences. The case is handled by the police or your police and the courts. Okay, so you are just a witness, giving the witnesses. So that is how the criminal law works. Okay, so then the standard of proof is beyond all reasonable doubts. So if you can prove it that thing has happened beyond all the doubts or reasonable doubts, then only that person will be convicted, and that person will be punished, right? So that is how the criminal law works, right? So that is how the criminal law works in any country, right? So then the basic courts involved is magistrate courts. Then there are some other courts on top of that, but it will be first handled by the magistrate court. So even if it is a murder, it will be first handled by the magistrate courts. Then only it will be transferred to the high courts or whatever. Okay, so that is how the criminal law works, right? So then we have civil law, right? Then we have civil law. Another thing is, if it is a issue related to criminal law, you might get, or anyone who is going to find guilty might get imprisonment and or fines, right? So imprisonment is also a part of the punishment when it comes to criminal law. So that means if it is related to these kind of activities, you might ended up in imprisonment as well, right? But when it comes to civil law, it is different, right? So civil law is covering civil disputes, right? So civil disputes means in Sri Lanka, the most popular dispute is land disputes, right? So land disputes, financial disputes, labor disputes, even personal things like divorce cases. So those things are covered under civil law, right? So in that case, the police or the government is not going to involve in that kind of things at all, right? Only thing is they are going to hear the case. That's all. The two parties are going to provide all those proceedings. They have to use their lawyers and whatever and do the proceedings. The government is not going to involve in that kind of thing. Only thing is they are going to give you the final verdict. Okay, so that is also just judges. Okay, so that is called civil law, right? So especially when it comes to our syllabus, the intellectual property laws are mostly covered under civil law, right? So in that case, if you have violated someone's intellectual property rights like copyrights or maybe patent rights or whatever, then there will be a case court proceedings under civil law. And most of the time, what will happen is if you are found guilty, you will be asked to pay compensation, right? So maybe just the courts will decide how much you're supposed to pay. That's it, right? So you will not be put it into jail or whatever. Of course, if you are not going to pay that, yes, that is then you will have to face some other consequences. But you will not be punished like the criminal law, right? So that is called civil law, right? So labor disputes, etc. Right? Sometimes labor disputes are there, right? You and your employer, right? If you are an entrepreneur, you and your employees, right? So they might sometimes you may not have paid your EPF, or you just abruptly terminate someone's. So likewise, there can be some disputes. So those things are also covered under civil law. Okay, right. So you must first understand the difference between criminal law and civil law. So there are some things that we will be covering which is under criminal law, like hacking a system, right? So those are computer crimes, right? Identity steal. So those are also computer crimes, right? So illegal drug trafficking, hate speech, sometimes spreading terrorism, right? Spreading ethnic hates. So those are criminal cases, okay? But things like copyright issues, patent issues, trademark issues, so those are coming under civil law, okay? Right. Right. So these are some legal aspects which is related to IT professionals like computer crime laws, intellectual property laws, commercial and business laws, especially when it comes to contractual things, especially when you are developing a software. Sometimes those softwares are huge softwares, right? So it took years and years of time. So then sometimes you have to upfront come up with contracts with the customer. So if there are any disputes, so those things also handled by commercial and business laws. Then of course we have the labor laws. So we have to think about we will be covering especially Computer Crime Act and Intellectual Property Act later. Okay. Right. Now that is the legal aspects. Right. So I'm just giving you the big picture. Right. So that is the legal aspect in high level. Then we have the ethical aspects. Right. Ethical aspects. So you may have heard the word code of ethics, code of conducts, etc. Right? So those are not laws, but somewhat related to laws as well. So we call them ethics. Right? So ethics are standards or codes of behavior expected of an individual by a group. So that is called ethics. Right? So that is not enforced by judiciary or courts or legal, but those are the things we expect or set of people expect from another set of people or the people in that group, right? So usually it is what the group expect from its members, right? So when we say group, it most of the time that is your society, right? So ethics means the things that society expect from you to abide by. So that is called ethics, right? So this is heavily debatable area as well, right? Because this is not a legal thing. This is what the society expect from you, right? So that is called ethics, right? So these ethics comes from different ways. So one thing is yes from the society, right? So we call this social ethics, right? Then there are some ethics we expect or the business organization expect from their employees. Again, those are not rules, but they generally expect those behaviors from their employees. So then we say business ethics, right? Then of course professional ethics. So if you are a professional, your professional body, if you are a member of a professional body, so they expect certain behaviors from you. Even though you are not a member of a professional body, your fellow professionals expect certain behaviors from you, right? So say I am a software engineer, you are a software engineer, so I expect certain behaviors from you as a software engineer because my profession is also software engineering, right? So because otherwise if you do certain things in a bad way, the society is going to blame software engineers, right? So you know that when one doctor do a wrong thing, so society is going to blame the doctors, right? So when an engineer do wrong thing, society is going to blame the doctor, the engineer. When a lawyer does wrong thing, so society is going to blame entire lawyers, right? So therefore, so we expect some ethical behaviors as a professionals from other fellow professionals. Otherwise, our professionals and ourselves are also going to be get the blame, right? So likewise, our business organizations expect certain behaviors from their employees. So that is called business ethics. Then, as a society, we expect certain behaviors from our fellow people, right? So that is called social ethics, right? So you can see it is different. If you break it, you are not going to put it into jail or you are not going to have any legal proceedings, but these things are also expectations of the society, business organizations, your fellow professionals, etc. Right? So that is called ethics, standards or codes of behavior expected of an individual by a group. Right? So then we have so now we are going to look at those categories. Anyway, I have discussed those things. The professional ethics, ethics that we expected by our fellow other professionals, or the ethics that is sort of expectation of that particular professionals or professional body is called professional ethics, right? Then we have business ethics where the businesses expect from its employees and other team members, etc. Right? So that is called business ethics. So why business ethics are important? If it is very important for the good image of the business, right? If the employees are doing wrong things in while doing their business, it is going to affect the business itself, right? So therefore, we have to look at the business ethics as well. Actually, every business organization try to lay out some business ethics and make all the employees aware of those things, right? Because we are in a very highly competitive business environment. If things are not working done in proper way, the customers are going to sort of highlight those things in social media and other things, then those businesses are going to get effect. Okay, right. Then we have now there are some advantages of fostering good business ethics as well. It is good for the not only for the business, it is good for the professional or the employee as well, right? So now let's see what are those some good things when you have the good business ethics. So it will foster the good business practices. So when you organize your employees are ethical, right? So then your business is going also going to be ethical business. So your customers are going to like your business. So that means your business will get prosperous, right? So it will gain goodwill of the community. So that is very important, right? So every business, unless they have the goodwill or the reputation or the people, unless the people like it or unless the people appreciate that business, they are not going to come to you, right? So therefore, having good business ethics will do that also, right? So and also it will create an organization that operate consistently, right? There will be less issues, less conflicts when the team members or the employees are working in an ethical manner, right? And also it protect the organization and employees from legal actions as well, right? So when your employees are ethical, so they are not going to face any legal issues, right? Individually as well as organization, because when individuals are doing ethical things, when the organization is doing ethical things, that means they are not doing unethical things. It's very rarely they are going to face any illegal things, right? Because most of the illegal things are unethical things, right? If you are not doing any unethical things, basically you are not doing any illegal things as well. Okay, and also it will avoid any unfavorable publicity, etc. Because you are not doing any wrong things, right? As a business, right? Right. So those are the good things if you are a ethical person and if your business has those business ethics. Right. Then we have the social ethics. Right. So social ethics means the expectation from by the society from its people. So that is called social ethics. So those are very straightforward things like respect others' freedom and privacy, respect and help elders, right? So there is no law saying you must respect and help elders, but we expect as a society, most of the societies expect those things, right? Ethics in using public places like public transport, public maybe toilets and stuff like that, even road, we expect certain ethics from people, right? And even the classroom ethics, right? So some students are not aware of those things as well, right? Classroom ethics, right? Some people get sleep in the classroom, right? Some people make a lot of noises, right? So even when you come to online class, we expect certain ethics, right? So we expect that you will. So those are not rules, right? So we expect that you will mute your system unless you are talking, right? So that kind of things, right? So those kind of things are also ethics, right? So professional people will practice those things just like laws, right? Just like rules, right? So those are the things that the society expect from you. So these are just few examples, right? So those are just few examples. When the people are not ethical, or when a person is unethical, when he is doing work also, he is going to bring those unethical behaviors to the work environment. So then it's going to be a really bad situation, right? So that is why we need all the professionals aware of the social ethics as well, right? Social ethics as well. Right. So few examples of ethics in using ICT, because we are heavily involved in using ICT. So there are few things, right? So not everything is mentioned here because this is just overview. Email and internet access monitoring. So this is usually we consider it as excessive monitoring as a unethical thing, right? Then sending spam mails, it's again unethical thing, right? Students doing plagiarism, really unethical thing. Now a lot of now you just submitted your file. Some of you have submitted your interim report, right? So you have to submit your final report. So plagiarism is really unethical thing. That is, you just copy someone's thing and someone's article or someone's text and you just put it as your one. So we know that more than 50% of the students do that, right? So that is really unethical, and we know that these people are really unethical people, right? Really unethical people. So as a supervisor, we know that sometimes we don't tell them, but we know that these are unethical people. So these people, when they go to society, they are also going to do such kind of things in the society as well, right? So plagiarism, right? So in the paper also, they are heavily interested in plagiarism because they try to convince you that these are unethical, these are unethical, these are unethical, right? So that is why they keep on asking those questions in the past papers. Almost every year, they ask a question on plagiarism because they experience this, right? They experience this, right? That is why in your final year project, you have code modification, right? So I don't know, anywhere in the world, there is something called code modification or final year project, right? Maybe only Sri Lanka we have that practice, right? Only Sri Lanka, right? Why? Because our students are unethical, right? So, we know that even because I am supervisor, I know that while I am supervising the project, right, at least 25% of those project they as their project they take someone else's project, right? At least 25%, right? So that is the minimum I know, right? So that is why they have what is known as code change or the code modification session, right? So otherwise, if the students are ethical, they are never going to do that, right? They are never going to do that. So that is also sort of plagiarism. Someone's code, actually, sometimes someone's entire project, they take it as their project, right? They take it as their project. So that is also really unethical. So now you can see that. So we are really unethical society. Majority of us are actually unethical people, right? Unethical people, right? So then use of cookies for unethical monitoring, tracking, etc., right? So that is, so those are some things related to ICT. So in the exams also they will ask some questions just to check whether are you aware of these things, are you not aware of those things, right? So these are just few examples. Right, now we are moving to the moral aspects. So now we have discussed the legal aspects, we have discussed the ethical aspects, right? Now we are moving to the moral aspects. So that is your the third area in your pyramid, right? So legal aspects, ethical aspects, moral aspects. Okay, right. So now let's see what is meant by moral aspect. Now we know what is meant by legal aspect. So those are the rules. If you break, you have to face the legal consequences. Ethical aspects, that means sort of a norms, not rules, right? Norms, expectations from the society, from your fellow professionals, from the business organizations, etc. If you break, of course, you may not face any legal proceedings, but you are not going to be liked by your fellow professionals. You are not going to be liked by your employer. You are not going to be liked by your neighbors, your fellow people in the society, right? So that is unethical, right? So people will see that yes, you are unethical person, right? So, but they will notice it. They will notice it. Sometimes they will get away from you, right? So they know that you are unethical person, right? So they will not punish you. Sometimes they will not directly tell you, but they know it, right? So you are unethical person, right? So that is again some pressure on you, right? Some pressure on you by the society, from your organization, from your fellow professionals, etc. It is just a pressure, right? So, so that pressure is in a way good, right? That pressure is in a way good. Because of that pressure, also you tend to not to do those things, right? You not tend to not to do those things because if A, B, and C are the A, B, C people, they respect the ethics. If D is not respecting ethics, then the D is going to be highlighted. D is going to be highlighted. But in countries like Sri Lanka, what happens is A, B, C are not going to anyway respect the ethics. Only D is going to respect the ethics. Then the majority is unethical, right? So when the majority is unethical, you feel really comfortable, right? You are doing really unethical things and you feel really comfortable, right? But if you go for a country, developed country, where ethics is really a valuable thing, so you will be highlighted there, right? You will be highlighted there, right? Right. So, but anyway, it is also pressure, right? It is not a legal thing, no punishment, but sort of a pressure on you, right? Social pressure, organizational pressure, pressure from your fellow professionals, etc. So the third aspect is really different thing. Really different thing, that is called moral aspects. Right? Moral aspects means it is up to 100% up to you. There is no legal binding, there is no social pressure, there is no pressure from organization. It is 100% up to you to decide whether I am going to do this, whether I am not going to do this. So then we say it is a moral aspect, right? Moral aspects. So moral is one's personal belief about right and wrong, right? So everyone has a sort of a consciousness, right? Consciousness. We know that when we do something, have I done a correct thing? Have I done a wrong thing? Right? So that you can't cheat yourself, right? You can cheat anyone, but you can't cheat yourself, right? So if you do a wrong thing, always your mind has it, right? Your consciousness will remind that you did a wrong thing. So judging those things, whether it's a wrong thing or right thing, is called moral. Right? It's 100% voluntary, right? It's 100% voluntary, and it is that accountability is not by any other person or not by legal entity. It is by your own consciousness, right? Own consciousness, or your mind or your heart, right? So that is called moral, right? So some people have high moral values. Some people, they don't have high moral values. But again, when we say some people don't have high moral value, it doesn't mean that it is not going to they are really having a happy life. No, always, though they pretend to, they pretend like they don't care it. The thing is, internally, they keep suffering. They keep suffering because they know that I did a wrong thing. So I am doing a wrong thing. So I'm keep on doing wrong things. So that you can't get away. So that is why in the modern civilized world, the people now don't care about religions, right? So don't care about religions, because what happens when it comes to religions is you give it to a next year. Sorry, not next year. You give it to the next life, right? You think that I am going to see the consequences in next life, right? Maybe the God is going to punish me, or I am going to get the punishment next life. But when it comes to morals, it is not your next life. You are going to keep on suffering for whatever you do, whatever your wrongdoings. So that is why we say religions is you transfer it to the next life. You should have suffer not next life. You must suffer in this life. So that is why the civilized world count on the morals rather than religions, right? So the moral means your own consciousness reminding you what is correct, what is wrong. So that is called the moral. So the professionals also, we expect you to be having high moral values, right? High moral values. Whether you have high moral value or low moral value, you are going to suffer, or you are going to be a happy person, right? That is different thing. But a good thing is have some high moral values, right? So anyway, those things are going to be affected by different things like your family background, your culture, your education background, right? So ability to think critically. Some people, they don't see that it is wrong, right? Because they are not critical thinking, right? So they of course they don't know whether it's right or wrong as well, right? So anyway, so that is the highest level we expect from as a ethical. It's more than ethical. It is not because of the social pressure. It is voluntarily. You think and decide which one I am going to do, which one I am not going to do. Right. So that is called morals. Right. Right. So there are some attributes related to moral. Right. So the most important thing is actually the moral. That is sort of voluntary thing. That is not because you fear of punishment. That is not because you fear of the social pressure, peer pressure. No, that is because you value it. Right. You value it. You don't want to do any wrong things. Right. So some moral related attributes are integrity, right? Empathy, respect, etc. Okay, so we'll take one by one. The first one is integrity, right? So integrity means moral uprightness, right? Moral uprightness. So moral uprightness means you do right things over comfortable things, right? So there can be things where you have to decide: am I going to do the comfortable thing? Am I going to do the right thing? Right? So even under difficult condition, now you are in a difficult condition as well, right? Especially your integrity will be checked when there are difficult situations, right? Am I going to do the right thing, am I going to do the easy thing, right? Comfortable thing. So the person with moral uprightness will always do the right thing over the easy thing, right? Easier thing, right? Doing right over the comfort, right? So that is one of the attribute of person having integrity, right? So again, so there are different ways you look at integrity. Doing the right things even when no one is looking at you. Now remember, this is 100% voluntary, right? So you are 100% sure that no one is going to see what you are going to do. You are 100% sure the society is not going to see what you are going to do. You are 100% sure the legal entities are not going to pick up or catch what you are going to do. But still, if you are not going to do it because you feel like it is wrong, then that is integrity, right? So that is why we say doing the right things even when no one is looking at you, right? So that is integrity, right? And also integrity is practicing the values, right? Practicing the values, right? So if you are having that kind of a character, right? That kind of a character where you don't do any wrong things, even though it is no one is going to catch you, right? No one is going to see you. Then we say you have very good moral uprightness, so the integrity, right? So that is what we expect from not only from professionals, we expect that from everyone, but especially from professionals, because professionals they are going to take a lot of responsibilities, right? So they are going to they can influence others, right? So that is called integrity, right? So you have to not only understand, if you can try to get it into your life as well, okay? So because we expect those things from professionals, right? So we expect those things from professionals, right? So then the empathy, so that is another moral related attribute, right? So empathy means ability to understand and share the feelings and emotions of others, right? So that is very important, right? So there are some people they can't understand the feelings of others, right? Feelings of others, because different people have their different situations, different issues, etc. Right? So you can't just look at someone else with respect to your life, because everyone is a unique person, right? So everyone has their own good and bad things. So empathy means you value or you respect others' individual differences, right? Individual differences. It doesn't mean that when someone is doing wrong thing, you want to tolerate it, saying that that is different person. So that is not what I am talking. Empathy means maybe he is doing this for certain reason, right? So for certain reason, for example, we know that stealing is wrong, right? So stealing is wrong, right? But maybe someone is stealing something because he can't uh, tolerate the hunger, right? So then you have to have that empathy, right? So you can't just say someone is stealing coconut from your garden or whatever. Maybe that is his last sort of option, right? Last sort of option to survive, right? So that kind of a situation you have to go for empathy, right? So this doesn't mean that you have to tolerate all the bad things, but there are places where sometimes you have to tolerate those things as well, because you have to think from their point of view, their life, right? So that is called empathy, right? That is called empathy, right? So you must have empathy on your team members, you must have empathy on your customer, etc., and your fellow citizens, right? So there are situations we have to be flexible. Then the respect. So respect means you must respect others. So that is self-explanatory. So why these things are again mentioned is, though we call it, some people don't respect others, right? Some people don't respect others, right? So due regards for the feelings, wishes, and rights of others. So that is called respect, right? So if you respect others, you are never going to be a burden to the society, right? We know that even in the society, maybe even simple things, right? Even simple things. For example, one person might park the car, or they just keep their car blocking some other's entrance, right? So that is, they are not respecting others, right? Maybe they are having their cassette players or whatever in a very high loud noise, so they are not respecting your neighbors, right? So there may be people who are suffering from that, right? So that means you are not respecting others, right? Even in the class, right? Even in a class environment, some people, so very rarely in a degree level classes, right? But if you take something like A level class or school levels, There are a lot of students sometimes they don't respect others. They shout at it. Of course, it's a kids time, okay. But when you are a mature person, we expect you to respect others, right? Respect others. So when you respect others, others are also going to respect you, right? Others are also going to respect you. So as a professional, we expect you to respect others. So when we say respect others, we don't want asking you to respect all the murderers, all the cheaters, and stuff like that. Respect of your fellow other people who are in the general public, your team members, your customers, etc. Okay, so that is called respect. So that is also moral related attribute. So integrity, empathy, respect. Right. Now let's look at few approaches in ethical decision making. So that is also part of your syllabus. When you are making decisions, sometimes you have to think about ethical aspects, right? Ethical aspects. So there are situations you have to consider certain things, and one of the aspect is ethical aspects when you take the decisions, right? Sometimes you have to think about the profitability of the organization, right? So the quality, efficiency, at the same time sometimes you have to think about ethical things as well, right? So when it comes to ethical decision making, so there are a few approaches we can consider, right? So they have been listed in your syllabus as well. A virtue ethics approach, utilitarian approach, fairness approach, common good approach, right? So these decision making has to be done when you are doing a very serious stuff, actually, not when you are developing just a small software or whatever, right? Right, then you will take one by one. Virtue ethics approach. So virtue ethics approach means that decision is guided by virtue, or whether it's a right or wrong. Right. So if you feel like it is right, you do this, or you take that decisions for the right side, not for the wrong side. Right? So that is called virtue ethics approach. So you take that decisions based on what is right, what is wrong, right? What is right, what is wrong. Again, I know that it's a debatable thing. Someone will think, they say that X is right, another person will think that Y is right, but at least according to your moral, do the right thing, right? According to your moral, maybe according to another person's moral, it might be the other way, but at least you must be truthful to yourself, right? So that is called virtue ethics approach. The second approach is called utilitarian approach. Right? Utilitarian approach means you take the decisions for the best overall consequences. Right? Best overall consequences. That means when you take that decision, some people are going to get negative effect, right? Some people are going to get positive effect, and maybe there are some negative effects, there are some positive effects. If you feel like there are more positive effects than negative effects, and if you have to take that decision as well, right? So you can't you must take that decision, then we say you can take this side, and then we say it is utilitarian approach. So best overall consequence, whatever if the when you have to pick whether x and y, x or y, if you feel like there are overall y has better overall consequence, you take that decisions as y. So that is called utilitarian approach. And then we have the fairness approach. So fairness approach means you try to treat all the people the same. So again, I am telling you, you at different situations you have to use different approaches, right? So there can be a situation where you will decide on something, right? X or Y. You feel like, say, when it is X, that will result in treating all the people in a sort of equal basis. So then you will go for that kind of decision. So then we say that you took that decision based on fairness approach, right? So because if you take that decision Y, that is you are not treating all the people same, right? So this is a big issue in countries like Sri Lanka, right? Because we are a heavily family oriented society, right? Family oriented society. So therefore we try to favor our, say, family members, our relations, etc., right? So that means when you favor your family member or relation or whatever, so entire society is going to suffer, because that opportunity should have been given to another person who is more competent, right? Then you are not treating all the people the same, right? So that is a big issue, right? In countries like Sri Lanka, right? So favorisms and stuff like that. So if you are using the fairness approach, you are not going to act like that. Right? You are not going to act like that, right? So we know that there are so many examples, right? I don't want to give you that kind of examples, right? Right. So anyway, if you take from politics, we know that there are some people, they are all only thinking about their family, their sons, etc. Whereas some other people, they don't act like that, right? They don't act like that. They think about the common good of the people, right? Right. So then the common good approach. So common good approach means, so when you implement that system or when you take that decision, if it is going to benefit all the people, right? You take that decision, right? You take that decision, or maybe benefit all the people or the majority of the people. Anyway, these things are sort of a overlapping things, but when you take decisions, especially which is going to affect the society and many other people, you have to think about those ethical decision making, right? Ethical decision making. Whether I'm going to look at whether it's right or wrong and decide on that, utilitarian approach, fairness approach, common good approach, etc. Okay, so these things has to be decided, especially when you are not only in software development. Actually, in software development, we don't have to do this kind of things much. But if you happen to be an entrepreneur, right, maybe a politician or something like that, you have to take that kind of decisions, right? So when you are deciding on how to design a road, right? If you are a civil engineer or whatever, so you have that decision making power, right? So whether you are going to have the road like this or you are going to have a road like this, so then you have to consider how much, what kind of people are going to be affected in this approach, or how much of families are going to be affected in this approach, how many families are going to be affected in this approach. So likewise, then the cost, then you have to take on those decisions. When you are taking those decisions, even design decisions, you have to consider those things as well, right? So that is called the ethical decision making techniques. Okay, right. So now let's move on. The professional communication, right? So this is another subtopic we are going to consider, the professional communication. So now we are moving to your topics one by one. I am just doing it as a flow, but at the end, most of the topics will be covered at overall level, not in detail, right? Because 2 hours, 3 hours is not enough to do in detail. But I am going to give you the big picture. Okay. The professional communication means, especially because we are in a very dynamic environment and we are in a team environment, communication is going to be really important thing. So that is why in your new syllabus, right? So in your old syllabus, you had communication skills only in your semester one. In the new syllabus, BIT syllabus, you have communication skills in 2 years. That is semester two also you have communication skills. Semester three, that means at level two also you have communication skills. So now that says that the emphasis on this particular thing, right? So it's a because if you are a really good communicator, you can shine yourself, right? Maybe you are a really good programmer, you are really good at database. If you don't have any good communication skills, right? Sometimes you struck, right? Sometimes you struck there because your team working is not there, right? You can't communicate properly with the customer, right? You can't clarify something, right? Now we are doing a lot of agile software development. In agile software development, team members are directly exposed to the customer, right? So if you can't communicate with the customer, you are not going to be a very good agile team member, right? If you can't communicate with your team members, right? Coordinate with your team members, so you are going to be a limited sort of a professional. So that is why there is a heavy emphasis on communication skills, right? Right. So now let's briefly look at this point, because I'm not going to go into details on this particular topic. Just give you the overview. So when it comes to communication, there are different type of communication, right? The personal communications, that is your communication with your friends, family members, right? Then the business or professional communication, right? So that is your business meetings, business letters, messages, team meetings, right? Maybe interviews by media, press conferences, if you are sort of a highly influential person in your organization, right? Like CEO, managing director, whatever, right? Then we have the academic communication. So that is when you are writing a report, thesis, dissertation, when you are giving a presentation of your assignment or project, YY interviews. So there you have to do it in a academic communication. Actually, academic communication and business communication, there is not much difference, but there are small change differences between business communication and academic communication, right? Then the literature. So that is if you are writing a novel, if you are writing a poem, so that is a different case sort of a communication, right? So we are more interested about this business or professional communication, right? So how you are going to communicate in your business organization, how you are going to communicate with your client, how you are going to communicate with your team members, right? So things like that. How we are going to send an email to the client, right? How we are going to prepare a business proposal, right? How we are going to prepare a contract. So that kind of things you have to do. If you are a project manager, if you are an architect, right? So you have to do those things in your life. Of course, if you want to be a professional, right? If you just want to do some other job or whatever non-professional job, routine job, you are not going to use those things. But if you want to be a professional person, IT or whatever, you are going to benefit from these things. Okay, right. Right. So now let's briefly look at some aspects of effective professional or business communication. Right. So when you are doing a business communication, that means discussion with your customer, team discussion, team meeting, right? Things like that. Reviewing of your architecture, reviewing of your requirements, right? Stuff like that. First thing is know your subject well, right? So if you don't know your subject, your confidence is really low, right? Your confidence is really low. You are not going to be a really good confident communicator, right? So if you know your subject, you have that internal confidence, then you can very easily do your communication, right? So that is the number one again, right? So no point you try to improve your all the communication skills unless you know what you are talking, right? You know what you are doing, right? So then only naturally that confidence is going to boost your all your communication skills, right? So the first thing is know your subject, right? Right. So second thing is know your audience, right? So you must aware what kind of people I'm going to talk, right? So the way when you are talking with your fellow team members, the most of the time that is pretty much the same set of skills are there, right? Same sort of culture. You can very easily to communicate with them, but when you are communicating with maybe the client or customer, you have to be different, right? Because you must know that he is not aware of most of your technical jargons, right? So he may not aware of your terms and terminologies and whatever you use in your software development, database, network. So you have to know your audience, right? What kind of people you are going to communicate with, right? So maybe you are just writing a user manual. So you are just giving your instructions to the non-IT people, right? So therefore you know your audience before you start your communication, whether it's a written communication or oral communication, right? And again, you have to plan and organize, right? Plan and organize. When you are starting going for a team meeting, when you are going to do a business presentation to the customer, plan it, organize it, right? So you must know how long you have, whether it's 10 minutes, right? Whether it's 15 minutes, what are the real objectives, what kind of things you are going to cover, then go there. Otherwise, you are going to really miss it, right? So plan and organize your communication, right? So use appropriate mode and technology, right? So for different places, you have to use different technologies, right? Right. For example, when I am doing this subject in the class, I use the note itself, right? Because the class is I have enough time, right? I have a lot of interactivity. But here, when I am doing the online classes, most of the time, if I have time, I go for a presentation. So that is I have to pick which mode, which technology I have to use at different scenarios. So same thing for you, right? Maybe when you are discussing with the customer, you may need some sort of organized materials, but when you are discussing something with your team members, you may just do it in a casual way because they are also aware of those things, they are also involving in those things, right? So use the appropriate mode and technologies, right? Then get the feedback. So that is also very important. So while you are doing the communication, at the end of the communication, you have to get your feedback and see whether your message has been reached to the targeted audience or maybe your customer, right? So that is important, right? Know your subject well, that will boost the confidence. Know your audience, plan and organize, use the appropriate modern technology, get the feedback, right? So then it is going to be a effective communication or effective professional business communication. Okay, right. So the effective listening. So this is also very important. While communicating, it is not only you have to talk, right? You have to listen as well, right? So if you are a really good listener, it is really going to help effective communication, right? Because unless you are a good listener, the other party is not going to listen to you, right? So if you don't listen to them, they are not going to listen to you as well. So that is no natural thing, right? So therefore, make sure that you are a really good listener, right? So that is very, most people forget about that, right? Most people forget about that, right? So remember, listening is different from hearing, right? Hearing means you just hear it, right? Or you just overhear it. Listening means you actively, right? You actively, with attention, you listen, right? So that is very important. Then you have to pay attention, right? You have to listen for the ideas, not just for the words, because it might be a design discussion, right? It is at the end you have to take some decisions, right? Maybe business decisions, right? So you have to listen for the ideas. Then only you get the full picture, right? Then only you can do those decisions properly, right? And when you are listening, you have to show that you are listening, right? So that means whatever the other party is going to know that you are interested, right? Then only they are going to keep talking with you, right? So show that you are listening. Provide feedback, right? So that means if you are not clear on something, you have to clarify. Ask for the clarification. If you are agree with whatever the point, you have to just at least not, right? Yes, I agree with that. Oh, I am not. I don't agree with that. I am not clear on that. So you have to provide feedback. Otherwise, the other party is going to be in trouble, right? Other party is going to be in trouble. The other party don't know whether you got it, whether you agree, whether you don't agree. They have no idea, right? It's like they are communicating with like a dead person, right? Dead thing. And also make sure you defer judgments, right? Don't make any judgments until you have your communication done, right? So otherwise you are going to prematurely come to the wrong decisions, right? And also respond appropriately, right? So those things are very important when it comes to effective listening. And also when it comes to presentations and public speaking, right? So because as a professional, we expect those things, right? So if you are not very good at communicating, right? So your progress in your career is going to be limited, right? It's going to be really limited, right? If you can't do this, right? If you can do this, you can be a manager, you can be a IT manager, right? You can be a sort of executive level person, right? Otherwise you are just going to do some networking, coding, right? Because you don't have these skills, right? So if you don't have the skills, uh, you can't blame the organization, right? So you can't go, you cannot be sent to the customer, right? You cannot be sent to the any other event, right? So then you have to just do your technical stuff and stay, right? So therefore it's very important, if you want to have a sort of a progress in your career, right? If you want to have some change in your life, right, work patterns, you have to have those competencies. Then only you will be considered, or you can take up those challenges and opportunities. Okay, right? So when it comes to presentations and public speaking, so there are some skills we expect, right? So the most one of the important thing is when you are doing these public speaking or presentation, use all three messages effectively, right? What are those three messages? The physical message, story message, and the visual message, right? The physical message, the story message, and the visual message, right? So the physical message means the physical things that involved in your communication, right? Physical things. For example, the posture, the gesture, voice control, eye contact. So those are all physical message, right? The story message is the story itself, or the message itself that you are giving is called the story message. So the visual message is the utilities like your presentations, your handouts, etc. is called visual message. Okay, right. So let's take one by one. Uh, so when it comes to physical message, the important things are posture, gesture, voice control, and eye contact. So those things are, you have to consciously think about those things. Otherwise, you are not going to be a very effective communicator, right? Effective communicator. So the first one is the posture, right? Posture means how you are going to stand up. If you deliver it stand up, right? Because some people, when they are doing a presentation or when they are delivering a speak or whatever, it's very pleasant, right? Very good personality we see from that person. But there are some people, we don't see that kind of a good personality. Sometimes it's even like a joke or something, right? So therefore have a very good posture, right? So usually good posture is sort of a upright sort of a thing. It doesn't mean that you just have to stay like that for entire session, but in general, you must have that good upright posture, right? Posture means how your body positions. Okay, so if you are lean forward, that is also not good. If you lean backward, so that is also not good. So lean backward means you are little bit lack of confidence, right? Lack of confidence, right? If you sort of lean forward, it is something like you are over enthusiastic, right? Over enthusiastic and stuff like that. It's also unnatural, right? So if you can just natural and sort of most of the time upright, that is really good posture, right? You know that in Sri Lanka, so we had a so this political thing anyway. We had a president last time. He has a terrible posture, so that is why he became a joke, sort of a joke in the internet, because he has a really terrible postures. Whenever someone take a picture of him, he looks like a joker, right? He looks like a joker. So that means that is maybe part of his personality. Maybe he is not aware of these things, right? He is not aware of these things. So if you have really good posture, you are going to be shine. You are going to stand out from the others, right? Okay, we will see some good postures later on, right? So these are also not very good postures, like uh, keep your hands in your knees and stuff like that, right? So I'm keeping your hands backwards. So those are also not really good postures, right? So this is fairly good posture, but again this is also not very good posture. It shows that you are not very confident, right? So now let's see few gestures, right? So gestures means, so posture means your body position. Gesture means basically your hand movements, etc. Right? Hand movements, etc. Now you can see that by just looking at these are really active, pleasant gestures, right? Gestures. Of course, they must have very good posture as well, but no one can is going to look at those things and say it's a joke. No, it is not joke. It is really serious, active, pleasant gestures. Okay, so likewise, you have to build up some really nice, positive, confident gestures, right? So then your message is going to be reached to the your customer, your fellow team members, and if you have some leadership skills, you are going to stand out from the others, right? So therefore, develop those things, right? Don't think that it is just learning Java, just learning database is going to help, because those things are important. But at the same time, try to develop your character, right? Try to develop. So that is why we have this professional practice, right? So we want you to be a professional, right? So stand out from the others, take the leadership, right? Right. So that is why have proper gestures, have proper postures when you are presenting something, right? So when you are at your final project also, right? So you have to do a very small presentation, right? So use these things, right? So show that you are confident, right? Show that you have a very positive attitude, right? So some people when the presentation is nearing, they are really tense, right? Really tense. So of course, if you have not done your project, you have to be really tense. That is because your morale is saying that I am doing wrong thing, I'm just cheated and whatever. But if you have genuinely done your project, If you know what you have done, why you have to worry, right? So you don't have to worry. You just go there, be relaxed, right? Be very forward thinking, and also have a very positive look on them. So then a lot of issues are not going to be there, because when you are not confident, people are going to suspect you as well, right? So maybe this guy has not done this, right? Likewise, right? When you are really nice and when you are really confident, it's going to speak out to the audience. Okay, so that is gestures. Then the story message, right? So the story message is the story itself, or what you present, what you talk, right? So usually it must have sort of introductory parts. You introduce your subject or whatever, then you present your body or the main things, and you conclude it, right? So maybe it's just 10 minutes speech or 10 minutes presentation, or maybe just 2 minute presentation. Still there must be some proper starting. You give your message and you conclude it and you just finish it, right? So you have it. Otherwise you, some people abruptly just stop it or just finish it. Sometimes the audience don't know whether you have finished it, right? Sometimes you abruptly start it, so don't do that, right? Have a proper starting, have your message given, and just conclude it. But at the same time, you must know how much of a time I have, whether I have 10 minutes, 5 minutes, just structure it. Okay, right? Then the visual message, right? So the visual message means if you have a presentation or something, if you have given, if you are giving a handout or something, so use those things also effectively, right? So that is going to help you giving you other message, the story message. So basically your body message and visual message is going to help your story message, right? So then it's going to be very really effective, right? So your visual message must not be too lengthy, right? So no spelling or grammar errors, must be really simple, consistent, right? So those things are important, right? So when you have a slide or presentation, it must not be too lengthy. Otherwise, what will happen? People are going to keep reading those things. So they are not going to listen to you. They are not going to pay attention to you, right? So they are just going to start reading your slides. So therefore, it must be really brief, and don't make any spelling mistakes, grammar errors or whatever, right? So then you are going to be just a joker, right? Right? So make sure that you correct those things, right? And also make those things very simple, because you are the person who is going to give the message, not your presentation, right? And make sure that those are consistent. So have a same sort of a theme, right? Have same sort of a theme, right? So don't make your slides one slide background red, another slide background yellow, one slide the page number is in the left side, one side the page number is the right side. Don't do that kind of things, right? So another thing that you are not supposed to do is read out what is in the presentation, right? That is one of the major mistakes when it comes to the beginners. So they go there and start reading the presentation. So you are not supposed to read the presentation slides, right? So you are supposed to give your presentation. Your presentation slide is just to help you, right? Maybe your audience might just have a look at it, right? So don't go and start reading point by point, this point, this point, this point. So then you become slave to the presentation. Presentation is your key thing. You are just a secondary thing, right? So you must be the primary actor. Your presentation is just going to help you, right? So likewise, make sure that you don't do those kind of mistakes as well. Okay, so then you can do a really good job, right? So because these things are important, right? As a professionals, we expect you to be a really good communicator, right? Really good communicator. Then only you can go up in your career, like managers and whatever the other levels. Right. Now we are moving to another topic in your syllabus. Right. So the communication topic is now over. Actually, I have covered on some aspects only, just to give you the big picture. And then the teamwork. Right. So teamwork is your, actually, I think, the second topic in your syllabus. The teamwork is important. Why? Especially IT. In IT, we have to work with others, right? So unlike, as I told you, if you are a lawyer, you might be able to work alone most of the time, right? If you are a doctor, even in most of the cases, you might be able to work alone most of the time, but still you have to collaborate with others like dispensers, nurses, etc. But when it comes software engineering and software development especially, sometimes your team has 100 people, all 100 software engineers, sometimes 10 people, 20 people, right? So you are also a software developer. You are also, maybe you are a software architect. You have a team of 20 people. Now you have to collaborate with your team members, right? So if you are architect, if you are a designer, you do the design and architecture, your team members are going to develop it, right? So you have to communicate your ideas, you have to communicate, clarify them, and get the work done, etc. So that therefore, if you are a manager or high level person, if you are just the entry level person like associate engineer, still you are a part of your team, right? So you must know how to do teamwork, right? Some features of good teamwork, right? Because some people they don't know how to work as a team, right? So therefore sometimes they are rejected in this industry because others are not going to like you, your team members are not going to like you, your project manager is not going to like you, right? He will feel like this guy is not a good team member, right? So then you will be sort of a cornered in your organization, right? So what are the features of a good team? So good team always has a common objective, right? So of course every team member has their own objectives, but your team must have a team objective, right? If it is software development, the objective must be develop your software in a high quality manner with given deadlines, etc. So that is your team objective, right? So have common objectives, and of course have competent and self-motivated team members. So once you have competent and self-motivated team members, a lot of pressure is released from the team leader or the project manager or whatever, right? Because that is why the software industry is really interested in taking the best talent, right? Best talent in the sense highly competent people, highly motivated, right? Positive thinking people, not the lazy people, right? Not the people with negative attitude for the work, right? So what we need is people who are really good at doing things, they enjoy developing things, they enjoy solving problems, they enjoy when their system is they are really happy when they see that someone else is using their software, right? Some business is really doing well using their software. There are that kind of people, right? So that kind of people we want to take into our teams. So then lot of your other issues are going to be solved because you have a really good motivated, positive attitude, competent team members. Then pick a really good leader as well, right? So just because you have a good team members, it's not going to work. The next thing is you have a really good leader, right? Your team lead or the project manager or scrum master or whatever the way we call it, have a really good team leader, right? So now we have really good team members, really good leader, right? Really good. We have common objective, right? So now we are pretty much on set for success, right? Success. Then have team identity, right? So that is also related to common objective. So just like we have common objective, have a team identity, right? So that is why sometimes you may have seen that, especially software field, they will be given some T-shirts or something like, right? Maybe they just wear it on Fridays, right? Then they feel like they are in the same team, right? You know that even when if you are say cricket team or football team, they have their common sort of symbols and stuff like that. So that will represent them, right? So that will sort of an additional thing to the common objective, right? So then they will feel like, okay, we are one team, right? We are one team. We must work as a team. So that is also important. Not only common objective, have a team identity. Give them a name, right? So in software industry also, whenever we start a project, we give it a name. Then we can identify our team members as part of that particular team, right? So it's very important. Then the effective communication and collaboration, because it's a team. Within the team members you must have very good communication and also collaboration, that is helping each other, right? Helping each other. So that is also very important. So then you are going to have a really good team, right? So those are some key points, right? Common objectives, team identity, competent and self-motivated members, good leader, effective communication and collaboration. So then you are going to have really positive productive team vigorously working on the objectives, right? Working on the objectives. Right. So another subtopic we are going to look at is the group dynamics. Right. Group dynamics. So group dynamics means in software field we have to work as a team. We have to work as a team, right? So maybe when we were to get another new project, we will be forming a team, right? So then they will work on that particular project, maybe just 1 year, maybe 6 months, right? So at the end, we have to deliver our objectives. That means if it is software, we have to deliver the software, right? Not only at the end, if it is agile software development, maybe every 2 weeks we have to deliver our product increments. Then once we are done, the team will be dissolved, and when a new project comes, another team will be formed. Right? So you can see that the teams are created, teams are dissolved, another team is created. Likewise, so there's something called forming of a team and again dissolving of a team, so that they will go to a different team. They will go for different teams, right? Because now your job is done. So when it comes to that kind of a scenario, there can be some possible issues that can happen, right? So therefore we are going to understand what are the stages that a team can undergo when it comes to not only software development. This is applicable to any team, right? So initially when you are forming a team, we say that we are in the forming stage. We are in the forming stage. That is where team members are gradually collected. Because initially we don't need all the team members when the project is just starting. Now team members are gradually coming to the team. Maybe it will take about 2 or 3 weeks. Initially just project manager and architect is working there. Now to help them another senior software engineers in the team, right? So doing some estimates, etc. When development is starting, another member is coming, maybe now the QA engineers are coming. So that stage is called forming stage, right? Forming stage, right? So then when more and more team members are coming, now assume that we have 12 member team, there can be some conflicting situations as well. We are not saying that always that is going to happen, but this might happen, right? This might happen. That is, there can be some conflicts between team members, right? Maybe team members, maybe they are just divided into two, right? Likewise, there can be some possible issues arising. So, if that is there, we say that we are in the storming stage. We are in the storming stage, right? Because these individual differences can be there, because maybe this is the first time X and Y is working in the same project, right? Of course, as professionals, we expect that there will be no conflict, but very rarely there can be conflict, right? There can be conflict like personality conflicts or stuff like that, disagreements on certain decisions or working patterns. Maybe project the one team members or the team members don't like the way the project manager works. Some project managers don't like the way some certain team members work. So there can be some storming, right? Possibilities there. Then after some time these things will be either resolved, or maybe they just some team members ask for a different project or whatever, they join a different project because they don't like to have it in this project. Likewise, so, or maybe they just understand each other and accept to live with those things, with those conflicting situations. So that is called norming. That is called norming, right? So once you get into the norming stage, you are going to start performing really good, right? So that is called performing, right? So now things have been settled, either those things are resolved or people have understood each other's differences. Now we are really performing well. Now the productivity is really up in the peak, right? So then maybe the project is over, right? Project is over, then the team will be again dissolved. So that is called adjourning, right? So the forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. So what we need to do is make sure that we quickly reach to the performing. So without wasting much time, maybe within just 2 3 weeks. Of course, if there are no any, there are no not much conflict, we can very quickly reach to the performing stage, and then we are in really good shape. Okay, of course, because it's a software as a project, ultimately we have to add on the team, right? So that is called group dynamics. So we have to aware that these kind of things can happen, not always. In that kind of situation, we have to quickly handle those situations, especially if you are a project manager. Right. So that is also related to group working, right? Team working. Right. So as I told you, every team we must have really good team members, and also we need to have a really good leader. Right. So then only the team is going to really do a great job. Right. So great team members and great leader. Right. So of course everyone can't be a leader. Right. So one of the member we have to pick as the team leader or the scrum master or whatever we call it. Someone has to take the leadership. Right. So now let's see some features of good leaders. Right. So what is leadership? Anyway, this topic is related to your other subject as well. Like you have the fundamentals of management, right? So they are also you need these things. So therefore, learn these things properly, right? Properly, because these things are not going to be changed when you are whether you are doing professional practice or fundamentals of management or whatever. The leadership is leadership. Okay, communication is communication, right? Teamwork is teamwork. Right. And also you have the entrepreneurship as well, right? So entrepreneurship is highly leadership oriented, right? So entrepreneur means you take all the risks, all the leadership, and you start your own business, right? So therefore, though these subjects are highly interrelated, if you understand this, you are not going to feel any burden about saying that okay there are so many subjects. No, everything is covering the same thing, okay, at different ways, different point of views, right? So what is leadership is a leader is a person who has specific vision. So that is very important word. Specific vision or objective, and also she or he can facilitate and motivate team members to achieve the objectives. So then we say he is a leader, right? He or she is a leader, right? So every leader must have a vision, right? So that means he must have a vision or objectives clearly. What am I supposed to achieve at the end? So without an objective, you can't be a leader, right? Then he must be able to now. You will be the leader. You will get a team members, right? Right. So you must be able to facilitate, that means help them doing their tasks, right? Provide all the facilities and motivate, right? Motivate them to achieve the objectives, because you are not going to do everything. You are just going to set the objectives and facilitate, and they are going to do the tasks, right? Your team members, your software developers, designers, testers, right? But you have to facilitate them, provide all the resources, etc., and motivate them, right? So motivate them that okay, why we are going to do this, what are the benefits we are going to have, right? What are the constraints we are having, and what kind of benefits you are going to get at the end of the project, right? So then they are going to self sort of motivate on doing that, and they are going to vigorously work on achieving the objectives, right? So then if you can do that, if you can make this happen, we say that you are a leader or you have the leadership, right? So that is very important. Everyone is not a leader, right? Everyone is not a leader. Everyone doesn't have leadership skills, but anyone can build those things. That is a different scenario, right? Anyone can build it if you are aware of those things and if you have that particular mindset, right? For example, again, anyway, I have to take some political examples, because if I take some business examples, maybe I am aware of that scenario, you are not aware of that, right? So that is why I am taking this political examples, because most of the people have seen those things, right? Now, for example, if you take now we are having this we had that corona issue, right? Corona epidemic issue. Now we know that in Sri Lanka we are pretty safe, right? We know that in India, in a single day there are about 90,000 cases, right? Even Pakistan, right? Bangladesh, right? Everywhere in our surrounding countries, it is spreading. But in Sri Lanka, we are now living a near normal life, right? Near normal life. Why? So whether you like it or not, right? Whether you like it or not, we have strong leadership now. We have very strong leadership now. When the leadership says something, people listen. People listen, right? So remember, we had more than 2 months total curfew, right? Total curfew, right? So we have never experienced that kind of situation, right? But people sort of voluntarily abide by that, right? Because when a leader says something, people they are sort of they are abide by that. That is not by force actually, right? So motivation, right? So still you can see that majority of the people are wearing face masks in Sri Lanka, right? Face mask. So that is why we are having very good control, right? So why? We can see that even the leader is wearing face mask, right? Leader is wearing face mask and people listen, right? If you have maybe the previous leader, right? If the previous leader says that you have to wear face mask, next day everyone is not going to wear face mask. And when the leader comes with the fair mask as a sort of very joking postures and gestures, from next day it is going to be a joke, right? So now it is not a joke, right? Face mask is a serious thing, right? So I am not biased to any political things. So I am sort of a person who hate politics, but we have to take those things, right? So we have to take those things as if someone has leadership, he should be able to motivate others, right? He must be able to facilitate things to happen, right? So everyone has a good and bad things, but leadership skills is something that we have to appreciate when someone has leadership skills. Okay, and of course, if someone don't have leadership skills, not only he is going to be in trouble, his team and all the others are also going to be in trouble, right? So therefore, it's very important to have a good leader when you are forming a team. Okay, otherwise he can't motivate, he can't facilitate, he don't have a vision, right? He don't have proper objectives, then no, the team is going to nowhere, right? So team is going to nowhere, right? And team is not going to listen to the leader as well, right? So what are the attributes of a good leader, right? So when it comes to leadership, we expect every good leader has a vision or objectives, right? So every good leader has a vision, right? So if you don't have vision, even you don't know what to do, right? Even you don't know what to do, right? So therefore, first of all, the leader must have vision. Then only the team members can see what they are supposed to do, and of course they must be able to leader must be able to motivate others, right? So when leader says let's go, everyone will say yes, let's go, right? So otherwise what will happen is the leader says let's go, others are going other way, right? So they will say okay, we don't care you, right? So that is say motivating, right? So leader must have vision, leader must be able to motivate, right? And also leader must be able to remove obstacles, right? Remove obstacles. So that is why we say in agile software development also, your scrum master is a obstacle remover, impedance remover, right? So he must be able to remove obstacles and facilitate the team to move forward, right? So if there is a issue, he must be able to remove that obstacles and facilitate. He can't say I also can't do anything, I am also helpless, so that is not going to work, right? And also your leaders must be really good at communicating. Then only the team members know what they are supposed to do, right? So if you are going to be a leader, if you are going to take leadership role, make sure that you have really good communication skills, so that your ideas are communicated to the team members, right? And again, leaders can introduce changes, right? Leaders can introduce changes, because when we keep change, only we can improve, we can move forward, right? So leaders can introduce changes, whereas if you are someone is not a good leader, they will try to do the same thing over and over the whole way, right? And also a very good thing, another, the final point is really really important. Good leaders always build next level of leaders, right? Next level of leaders. So that is a very good, very important thing. The good leaders, when you have good leaders, they always create next level of leaders, because good leaders don't fear of the next level of leaders, right? Because he or she know that I am really good leader, Therefore, he don't fear to build other leaders, right? Other leaders, because when he get out of the business, or when he get out of this task, he has built enough number of people who can take up the leadership, right? Who can take up the leadership. Then he can go to the next level. He can go to the next level, or he can do something else, right? Something else. So those are very important attributes of a good leader, right? So in your future also, if you want to be a really good professional, right, successful professional, make sure you also become leaders someday, right? It doesn't mean that everyone has to be going to the top of your business organization. Maybe you can become a system administrator, project manager, right? Architect, right? Whatever, or whatever the field you are in. Maybe you are not in 100% IT field. Whatever the field, you can take up those leadership skills, right? And the other thing is, without knowing these skills, don't be a leader also, right? Don't be a manager. Then, right? So that is the other thing, right? You don't have any of these mindset, and all of a sudden you become manager, right? Then your other team members are in support, really pathetic situation, right? You are just coming to the organization or the department without any character, without any attitude, right? So then it's going to be really mess, right? So not only you are in trouble, your team members are also going to in real trouble, and they are going to actually leave you, right? So therefore, if you want to be a leader, make sure that you have those skills, right? Otherwise, don't be a leader, just be a follower, just a ordinary team member. Okay, right? And we know that what happens to this country also, right? When there is a lack of leadership, a lot of things happens, like terrorisms and so many other things happens, right? So why people without leadership become leaders, right? So they happen to be leaders, right? So these things I am not going through much. So this is additional stuff I just added. So leader and boss is two different things, right? So leader is a leader, boss is a boss, right? So what we want is leaders, right? So boss says others to go, whereas leader say let's go, and he will take up the leadership. He will be in the front, right? Boss will be in the back, the leader will be in the front, and leader will be take up the leadership, right? So the boss will blame others, whereas leader will fix it. Right? If there's an issue, the leader is going to fix it. So that is why we say in agile software development, Scrum Master must be a sort of a servant leader, servant leader. So he fix things, right? He fix things, right? So the boss will command, whereas leader will just politely ask you to do something, right? Request you to do something, right? So the boss will take advantage of other team members, whereas the team will empower. So they will build others. They will build their competencies, skills, because they know that the leaders know that I need to empower these people and get the work done, and I want to make them leaders in the future, right? So the boss will know how it is done, right? Whereas leader will show how it is done, right? So so that is another difference. So leader will show you exactly this is how you are going to do it. But boss will say this is how you are going to do this, but he is not going to show it, right? And also boss always say I, whereas leader will say we. So leaders are always providing or giving that credit to the team, right? Not taking the credit by himself or whatever, right? So those are also important things, right? And there are some leadership styles, right, which is mentioned in your syllabus. So the previous one is a little bit of additional thing. So this is I'm coming back to your syllabus now. So your syllabus has mentioned few leadership styles, and in the exams they have asked that also, right? So what are those styles? Few of those styles that we are going to discuss. So the first style is authoritarian leadership, right? Authoritarian leadership. So authoritarian leadership means they prefer own decision making, right? They prefer their own decision making, and they are sort of a hard leaders, right? So they don't consult others when they take decision making. Sometimes they just take the decision and they try to implement it by others. And also they prefer direct supervision, right? So they are little bit tough leaders, right? Tough leaders, sort of a right, and also they focus on efficiency, right? Efficiency. They want to always see the results, right? They want to improve things, and also they might induce little bit of fear as well, right? So that is why we say authoritarian, right? So they are sort of a little bit bossy, right? But there are situations authoritarian leaders are also needed, especially when we have crisis, right? Crisis situation like war or something like this kind of a health crisis. Authoritarian leaders are going to work, because otherwise things might be out of our control, right? Out of our control. And also when the team is weak and incompetent, right? Again, we need authoritarian leaders, right? When the team is really less motivated, incompetent, right? So they are not going to do by their own. Then authoritarian leader is going to get those things, get things done from these kind of weak people, right? Weak people, right? So another style is called transformational leaders. Transformational leaders. Transformational leaders will try to or prefer to transform their team members, or maybe we say something like this: they can transform their vision into reality, right? Their vision into reality. So they must have a really good vision, and they know how to make it reality, or how to make it materialize. So most of the time transformational leadership is expected by entrepreneurs, right? Or the entrepreneurs or business people, they are usually transformational leaders, because they have business objective, business idea, right? So they want to transfer it to a product or software or maybe business or something like that, right? So that is called transformational leaders, right? So they have a very good mission, clear mission, and they work to change or transform his followers' needs and redirect their thinking. So they can somehow motivate them to achieve this objective, and of course they will also get benefits, and they will also get the benefits. Uh, so that is transformational leadership is good when you are building a new business, right? Based on especially innovation, right? Team members who like to face challenges, right? Because you need to have good team members also, right? Just because you are a good transformational leader, it is not going to work. But if you are a good transformational leader, if you have really good team members, you can really build really good things like new businesses, new product, new services, etc. Right? So that is called transformational leadership. Another category of leadership is called paternalistic leadership. Right? Paternalistic leadership. So paternalistic means something like fatherly figure, just like a father, right? So that leader is going to act like a father to the children, right? So that is why we call it paternalistic. So act as a fatherly figure, right? So they care the connections and subordinates. Sorry, they care the concerns of the subordinates, right? So that just like a father, right? So the father always cares their children's needs. So just like, so they are going to he is going to address those concerns, right? So subordinate means the people below under his supervision, right? And also when that person do act like that, so he get the to sort of a total trust of the followers, because he is like a father, just like the children trust the father, because this leader is taking care of you, right? Provide uh, address your concerns, then you become really trustful, sort of a faithful to that person, right? So then that is where his leadership is going to grow, right? So and but the little bit of bad thing is it can result in some favorisms and corruptions as well, because you are sort of a favoring your team members, right? Your fellow followers, right? Right. So this is again good when your team is weak and fragile, because when your team is weak, someone like a just like when you are kids, you are heavily relying on the father, right? So when your team is weak, sort of a paternalistic leadership might work, right? Paternalistic leadership might work. Okay. Right. Another leadership style is called democratic. Right? Democratic leadership. In democratic leadership, they always listen to the concerns of others, and they try to take votes. Right. So they, rather than the leader take the decisions, he always get the try to get the consensus from the others or the team members. So that is called democratic leadership. Right. So again, that is good when you have professional and competent people. Why? When you get feedback or the input from the team members must be really competent and skillful people, right? Otherwise, you are in trouble, right? So that is why we have different type of styles as well, right? For example, if your team members are really incompetent, lazy, maybe authoritarian leader is going to work, right? Whereas when your team members are really competent, motivated, even democratic leader is going to work, right? So likewise, for different scenarios, different leaders are going to fit, right? Right. Another type of leader is called a laissez-faire leader. So laissez-faire leader means low involvement. So they give a lot of freedom, right, and authority to the team members. Right. Again, this is going to work when you have really professional, self-motivated, competent team members. Right. So otherwise, it's not going to work. Right. So when you have really professional people, the laissez-faire leaders are going to work because professionals actually enjoy when they are not tightly governed, right? Because they know how to do things. They have that self discipline, right? Then the laissez-faire leadership is going to work. So again, we are not saying that one leadership is going to work for everywhere. Depending on the situation, depending on the team, different type of leadership styles are going to work. Okay, right. Another type of leadership is called transactional leadership, right? Or transactional leaders, right? So that is a typical manager approach, right? Typical managers, right? So usually the typical or traditional managers manage by reward and punish, right? And another name is stick and carrot, right? So other way, the reward is carrot, the punish is stick. Okay, stick and carrot or the reward and punish, right? So transactional leaders manage or rather than lead, we just call it manage by reward and punish. So when good things are done, they try to give rewards. When bad things are done, they try to punish. When we say punish, maybe salary cuts, maybe something like your promotions are blocked and stuff like that. Okay, so in that case we say it's a transactional leader, but that is not a favorable leadership style. That is very conventional style, and sometimes we call that approach as management by exception, right? So that is only when there's an exceptional situation they try to figure it out rather than they have holistic sort of a idea, right? Right. So usually, now you know that maybe you have heard that you may have seen how dogs are trained. So there are some professional dog trainers, right? So they always, when you are training a dog, when the dog do good things, they just show that they are really happy. They are showing their love. But when the dog is not doing a bad thing, and when dog is not obeying the commands, they are sort of punishing, right? So they are not giving the treats, right? Sometimes little bit of delay in the their foods and stuff like that. And sometimes even they might sort of intimidate, right? So that is exactly what happens when you have a transactional leader, right? But again, in some situations, sometimes transactional leadership is going to work, especially when you are having routine tasks, when your team members are not that much competent, self-motivated. Sometimes you have to use this stick and carrot approach, or the reward and punish approach. Okay, right. So that is another type of leadership. Right. Now we are going to discuss another concept related to teamwork. Still we are in the teamwork, conflict resolution. Right. Conflict resolution. So conflict resolution means when there is a conflict in the team, because that can happen, right? So there can be conflict between two people two team members, or there can be conflict between two fractions. So team has divided on something, maybe a design decision, maybe technology selection of a technology, right? So something like this. So there can be that kind of a conflict as well, or maybe just individual conflict, right? So when you have that kind of a thing, we have to resolve it, right? Especially it is the task of the leader to facilitate that, or even the team members, other people have to get together and resolve it, right? So there are some resolution strategies. I am not going to details like discussion. So have a discussion with these people, right? Or let them discuss and fix it. Another thing is mediation, right? So mediation means if the conflict is really heated or at a very intense situation, someone has to mediate the situation, come into the middle and somehow try to fix that issue or resolve that issue. So that is called mediation, right? The compromise means when there is a conflict, that is especially when there is a conflict between manager and the team members, right? So we can go for compromisation. Compromisation means give and take, right? So now, so still that can be done between two people also, right? So there's a conflict, so you have to give and take. You have to compromise something. The other party also have to compromise something, so that you can resolve your problem, right? So that is called compromising. So likewise, discussion, mediation, compromise. So likewise, there are conflict resolution strategies. Okay, and those things will work for different scenarios. Right. Right. Now we are moving to another topic. Actually, this is a separate topic. I think this is the topic in your syllabus. The social context of computing. I am again going to give you just a big picture only. Now only we are coming to the serious topics, right? Especially for the exams, these topics are more important than the previous ones because the previous ones just set the background, right? So these are the sort of more serious topics, okay? Social context of computing, or sometimes we call it social informatics. So that is the word they use in your syllabus, okay? Social informatics. So social informatics means the social context of computing. So what are the benefits? What are the effects of computing to the society? Right, right. So social informatics. So the social context focus on social consequences of design, implementation, and use of ICT. So that is called social informatics or the social context of IT. Okay. So when you are designing, when you are developing, so those things also have some effect, and also in general when you are using ICT. Okay. Right. So some of the social consequences in using ICT, right? So these are some high level points you have to understand. So some of those things or some consequences directly affect their meanings and roles. So that means if you are a manager, when the ICT is introduced, so maybe when an information system is introduced, your meanings, your roles are going to be changed. Right? Roles are going to be changed. For example, assume that we have introduced a leave management system, online leave management system. Right? Now, before this, if you are a manager, people come to you with leave applications. Right? Come to you. Right? Then you approve it or not. But once it is online, now people are not coming to you, right? So they will apply it online. You have to accept or reject it online. Now you can see you might feel like, okay, now people are not coming to me. So I had that sort of authority. Now it looks like now I am losing some part of that authority. So that is why we say when you have this, people will. Some people's meanings and roles will be affected. So that is normal thing. That is normal thing, right? For example, now when I am doing this in the class, I have a different role. When I am doing this in online, I have another role, right? So now I am doing a little bit facilitator role, right? Because you can't see my body language, etc. Because it's a very small space, it is not going to work. So that is why I'm just disabling it also, right? So it's a different role. So when ICT is introduced, we have to accept that we have to do different roles, right? Our meanings and roles are going to be different, right? So we are going to be more facilitator now, right? So that's happened to every organization, right? That happens to every organization. So some people like it, some people resist it, right? Some people resist it. So we have to understand these things, right? If you are, because it is not just developing a software, right? So we have to introduce into the organization, we have to introduce into the society, we have to make sure that the things are accepted by the organization or the employees, right? So it is more than just developing a software, right? So and also the use of ICT will create both winners and losers, right? So it is not value neutral, right? So whenever we introduce a new information system, whenever we introduce a new service, online service, it will create both winners and losers, right? Both winners and losers. Some people are going to directly lose their jobs, right? Some people are going to get new jobs. Some people's the job role is going to be different. So likewise, some people feel like I am a winner. Some people feel like I am a loser because of this. Especially if someone is not very IT oriented person, he's definitely going to feel like a loser. Right? So we have to accept those things, and we have to sometimes tackle those things as well, like changing the people's mindset, train them. So likewise, we have to tackle those things, right? Right. Then the use of ICT can lead to multiple and often paradoxical effects as well. So when you introduce something, online thing or ICT, not only just one thing, it can result in multiple different things. Sometimes paradoxical things. Paradoxical means we expect something exactly opposite thing occur. So that is called paradoxical effect, right? So that also can happen, right? For example, you provide this is not from the industry. You provide a laptop to a student who is doing A level ICT, right? So our expectation is he is going to use this and do his studies well. Maybe the paradoxical effect may be he got used to play games, right? So that can be a paradoxical effect. Now his education is also going to affect, right? So I'm not saying that that is going to happen every time, but that kind of things can happen, right? So you are introducing a internet to the organization to make it more productive. Employees are now just using the internet to download movies and watching other things, social media in the office environment, office hours. So that is paradoxical effect, right? Paradoxical effect. So that likewise, use of ICT can result in paradoxical effect as well, right? And also, you have to consider some moral and ethical aspect as well. Right? Some moral and ethical aspects you have to consider when it comes to ICT. Okay, so obviously that is self-explanatory, right? Right. So let's move on to Sylvia in the social context, right? So, because when you are talking about the social context, you must aware of what are the some trends as well, new trends that is going to affect the society, right? Trends related to IT, especially, right? So, at least you must aware of these concepts. Of course, if you are a really serious professional, you must be really serious about these things, right? So, few of those things we have mentioned, like globalization, collaboration over competition, virtualization, remote working, quality and productivity, emphasis on quality and productivity, green technologies that is related to the environmental pollution, reducing pollution, right? Human rights and freedom, right? So that is why you have separate topic called uh, civil liberties, right? So remember, you have separate topic in your syllabus called civil liberties. So that is, it's a new trend in society. People are now heavily talking about the civil liberties, people's human rights, the freedom, etc. Right? So sometimes you have those things in the syllabus, but the student don't have any feeling about that. So that means they don't care those things, right? So that is, then they say the syllabus is really difficult. Oh, I don't know what is mentioned in the syllabus. So that means you are an outdated person, right? So right, you are just living in 1970s, 1980s, right? So that means you are not aware of globalization has happened in the world, right? You are not aware that now people rather than compete, people try to collaborate, right? So now that is normal thing. Now people don't compete with each other, right? අර ගම්වල ඉන්න කොස් ගෙඩියට පොල් ගෙඩියට මේවා කරගන්න මිනිස්සු තමයි තාම compete කරගන්නේ. හරි මිනිස්සු දැන් collaborate කරගන්න, right? So now sometimes it become an issue also, right? Now people don't compete, right? We know that in politics at low level people compete, right? අල්ලපු මනුස්සයත් එක්ක මරා ගන්නවා, right? ඒ මෝඩ කට්ටිය, right? But high level politicians, they collaborate, right? So these are really genius people, collaborate. The fool people, they fight with each other, they compete, They compete. The genius people, they collaborate, right? They collaborate. අර පක්ෂේ ඉන්නේ කියලා මේ පක්ෂේ ඉන්නවා කියලා බලන්න. මේක මරා ගන්නවා. මේක මරා ගන්නවා. හරක් එක. Right? So that is because this is a new trend. They are not aware of that the world has changed. So they think that still the world is an old world. No. Now people collaborate over competition. Now there are hardly any wars in the world, right? And not only Sri Lanka, with the terrorism is over. All over the world, terrorism is sort of now. There is nothing like terrorism other than just the Middle East area, right? So early days, everywhere terrorism, right? So now people collaborate over competition, right? Only the foolish people compete. Then the virtualization, right? Virtualization is also a modern trend. Now here also now we are doing a virtual classroom, right? This is a virtual classroom, right? Virtualization is also modern trend, right? Then the remote working. So people are now getting used to more and more remote working. So those are the social trends, right? So those are the social trends that we have to aware. And of course we can exploit those things, right? We have to appreciate those things. We have to get the benefits of those things, right? So another concept is quality and productivity. Now people are heavily interested in quality, productivity, right, rather than quantity, etc. Okay. Then we are now more environmental conscious, right? So we are now heavily environmental conscious, right? ඔයගොල්ලෝ දන්න මේ දවස්වල Facebook එකේම ආවම වැඩිපුරම පේන්නේ මොකද්ද? සිංහ රාජ්‍යය ආරක්ෂා කරගන්න නේද? කැලෑ කපන්න එපා. So you know that, right? So that is not only Sri Lanka, that is a trend. People are heavily environmental conscious, right? So green technologies and businesses, then the human rights and freedom. So that is why you have separate topic called civil liberties, right? Then we are now talking about the agile, not only agile software development, agile business principles, because we want to be very agile, to be very competitive, right? So the use of cryptocurrencies and stuff like that are some new trends. This is not a comprehensive list, only a few of the trends. Then you can build on that knowledge and you can identify what is really happening in the world, right? What is really happening in the world, right? So we are going to do few more slides and stop for this session because then in the next session we can finish it. Right. So we are going to take few of those things. One of those things is globalization. So the globalization means the world is getting closer and closer together. So that is called globalization. Right. So now we say that we are living in a global village. Right. Global village means whether maybe you are working in a project which is the client is in USA and some of your team members are in the USA and you are in Sri Lanka, maybe another set of people are in India. So we are just collaborating with each other, right? So you are just logging to the production server in USA and you are just fixing the bug. So we are now getting closer and closer together, right? So that is called globalization, right? So world is getting closer and closer together. Maybe your brother is in Germany, right? Studies, but he is frequently chatting with you, right? He is frequently get video calls with you. Maybe your sister is in Australia, right? So now it's a global village. You don't feel like they are far away. You frequently chat, video conference. So that is called globalization, right? So when there is a group meeting, big multinational company, they all get together in a Zoom call and discuss their business trends and business strategies. So that is why in good old days, people have to travel that place to attend a conference or whatever. So that is globalization, right? So why globalization is there? Because of the ICT. Main driving force is ICT, right? Main driving force is ICT, and of course, little bit of better transportation, but mostly ICT, right? So the result is we have the global communication, right? And also another result of globalization is business process offshoring and BPO. When we say BPO, either it is business process outsourcing or business process offshoring. Business process outsourcing means we outsource it to a different company, right? Maybe in the same country or different country. If you outsource it to different country, we say business process offshoring. right? Business process offshoring. So that is also possible because of globalization. Right? Globalization. Right. So you have to aware that these things are happening now. Right. These things are happening now in software industry also. Most of our software industry field is due to globalization. Right. We are working on most of the time a USA project or maybe Japanese project or maybe some European projects. Why? They have outsourced. Right. So they have offshore their software development to countries like Sri Lanka, India, etc. And also they have offshore lot of their manufacturing to China. So likewise, that is globalization, right? So Apple computer is mostly assembled in China, right? So why globalization, right? So that is one of the most important modern trend. And then, so there are some advantages and challenges as well, right? So global marketing opportunities are there. It reduces the cost by offshoring, right? It take advantage of the time zone differences, right? Because part of the team is when it is night time in USA, the call centers in Sri Lanka is operating and providing support, right? So in the daytime, the software is developed in the USA. In the when they are, it is night for them. The people in Sri Lanka is coming to the work and taking their code base. Our guys are developing the rest of the stuff. So that is also globalization, right? Because of the globalization, right? Take advantage of the time zone differences, and now we can build virtual businesses, right? So like Amazon, eBay, right? New online job opportunities, right? So those are the advantage of globalization. So globalization is not really a bad thing, right? So there are a lot of good things, right? And there are some challenges also, right? For example, so some people are losing their jobs due to globalization. So that is happening mainly not for countries like us, the countries like USA, UK, because when they offshore to the countries like Sri Lanka and India, the people in USA, UK, they are the one who's going to lose the job. So that is a bad effect for them. And for us, the bad effect is due to the globalization, right? So now the big players like Uber, right, and those kind of business organizations come to countries like us and do their business, right? Now we can see that now we had a huge advertising industry like papers, TV, radio. But now most of the advertising is done by Facebook. Now that entire money is going to the USA. So those are the again globalization, right? Now they can come and do advertising, enter the advertising industry in Sri Lanka, right? So those are some challenges, right? So now our guys like Pick Me has to compete with global giants like Uber, right? So that is challenges we are having. That is the challenges we are having, right? So we have the advantages, we are having the challenges, right? So we have to face the challenges, we have to exploit the advantages, right? So every country has the challenges and advantages due to globalization, right? Globalization, right? So another concept related to social informatics is digital divide. Right? So this is a very famous question in your paper. The examiner is also really interested in this particular topic, the digital divide. So digital divide means now there are different divisions in the society, like male and female, based on the religions, based on the race, right? Whether they are poor or rich. Likewise, now there is another division, we call it digital divide. So digital divide means the new division in the society where information haves and have nots, right? So there are some people who have access to the information, there are people who don't have access to the information. So then there's a division, another division in society, right? So this digital divide you can identify between countries. That means there are countries which have a lot of access to the information, like internet, world wide web. Some poor countries and some remote countries they don't have access to those things much. That is between countries. Then within the country also it can happen, right? Even in Sri Lanka, some people have access to the modern infrastructures like the internet and stuff like that, very fast internet, etc. Whereas in other rural areas, either the internet is not reliable or the speed is not there. So that is digital divide, right? So the people in rural areas don't get that facility. People in the urban areas get that facility. So that is a digital divide, right? So between countries, within the country, between different social segments, right? So the rich people have access to internet, poor people don't have access to internet, right? So that is also digital divide, right? Right. So why there's a digital divide, right? Why? So there can be so many reasons, right? Uh, Not having the infrastructure, right? So maybe a rural area, they don't have the internet infrastructure. Maybe they don't even have the mobile phone signals. So that is not one reason. Or some people cannot afford to the services, maybe economic reasons. Maybe some people are poor, so now they are not going to have that facility. Or some people have the infrastructure, they can afford it, or they have the money, but they don't know how to use it. So that means the ICT literacy is not there. So now you can see that there are three main reasons we can identify why there is a digital divide, right? So some people that don't have access to the infrastructure, some people cannot afford it, some people don't know how to use it, right? So therefore, for these three reasons, the digital divide can happen between countries or within the society. Now, when you know this problem, you must be able to come up with a solution as well. That is what we expect from professionals, right? So some possible solutions are, so you can just think and come up with solution actually, right? Not having the infrastructure, what you are supposed to do. Especially the government must promote the service providers to go for rural areas. Don't just concentrate on urban areas. Provide the facility to the rural areas as well, right? So that is one solution to this particular issue, right? Another solution is make ICT related equipments and services cheap, right? So that is why in Sri Lanka also there is no tax for the computers, right? I think there is no tax for the smartphones as well, right? So that is why then people will buy it more and more, right? People are going to buy more and more computers, smartphones. Then they have the access to the internet and stuff like that. It will reduce the digital divide. Okay, then provide more trainings, awareness, and stuff like that. So that is why even in Sri Lanka now the ICT is a subject taught maybe from grade 1 to 3, right? So that then these people are going to be naturally aware of these things, right? So that is how we are going to tackle digital divide. So in the exams also they ask this question, and always they ask suggest some solutions, right? Right. So this is another topic related to social context of ICT, accessibility for disabled. Right? Because you know that disabled people are also part of the society. Right? Now we are a sort of modern society. We care not only the normal people. We especially care the disabled people. Right? People with some issues. Right? So when it comes to ICT, internet, social media, the information systems, we have to make sure that we provide some facilities for these disabled people as well, right? Disabled people as well. So there are few things that we can think of, right? Actually, you have to think about those things. If they ask in the exams also, actually, why they ask that kind of question is, are you aware that we have to treat these people specially, right? So are you aware that these are also part of the society, right? So as a professional or whatever, as a citizen, we have to respect these people as well, because they are sort of in a less advantage situation, right? Right. So now let's see what are the sort of solutions or initiatives people have taken. Right? One initiative is called Web Accessibility Initiative. Right? Web Accessibility Initiative try to provide more and more accessibility to the web resources for the disabled people. Right? So like now we have the speech recognition software. Right? Of course, we can also use it, but people with some disabilities can also use it, because assume that some a person doesn't have issues with both the hands, right, amputed or whatever, then still he can use the speech recognition and interact with the computer. And also we can use some agent technologies, right? Already we have those kind of things like Google Assistant, uh, Apple Siri. So those things are going to not only help us, they are immensely going to help these disabled people, right? And the screen readers are there, so then they can just read the screen in a voice environment, and also ease of customization and stuff like that are going to help the disabled people, right? And also the remote working is also going to help them, right? That person who can't move easily, right? So then rather than he go to the office, right, maybe he can work from home. So he can find a job where which he can work from home. Or maybe he can just he has just to go there maybe just once a week, right? All other 4 days he can work from home. So likewise, we can use the remote working as well, right? So in your slides and in your reference book, they are talking about both the pros and cons of this. So just go through and think about those things, right? So I explain you the process. There are some cons as well, right? So when we ask them to work from home, they lose the opportunity to come and mix with the society. So that is another issue, right? So now we try to help them by asking them to stay home and do the work, but now they are isolated again. So we don't want to isolate these people, right? We want to accept these people to society. So therefore, remote working is a sort of a double-edged tool, right? It can be, if you do it, especially with these people, if you do it excessively, it can be negative, give a negative effect as well. Okay, right? So we have to think about that, things like that, right? So because this is degree level, right? So if you have that professional attitude, if you can think about all the possible things, like empathetically look at those things, look at problems in a different angles, so that those are the things that is tested in your paper, right? So that is why you have essay paper, not just MCQ, right? Essay paper, they will ask you to discuss, right? They will ask you to come up with some solution to the situation, right? So if you are a professional people, if you have the professional attitude, you can answer. If you are a very, if you don't have that professional attitude, you can't answer. Okay, right? So that is accessibility. Another topic is gender biasness, right? Gender biasness, because again it's a social issue, especially when it comes to ICT, right? So most of the ICT workforces, not only in Sri Lanka, all over the world, most of the ICT workforce is male, right? Male. That that is a really bad situation, because there are some jobs the males are good at doing that, especially if it is something to do with physical nature, right? Physical labor, whatever. But software development is highly mental oriented, right? Mind oriented thing. So then we can't say that the females are not going to suit for the industry, but the reality is more and more male people are, or males are, in the industry. So we have to address those issues as well in the future, make sure that the females are also given a lot of opportunities, right? So actually, not only females must be given the opportunity, females must take that challenge also, right? So otherwise, no, they can't blame the society saying that we are not given opportunity. So yes, society has to give them the opportunity. At the same time, they have to take up the challenges, right? So that is one thing, right? Another possibility, or another aspect is related to gender biasness, is now the society is very sensitive about these genders, right? Gender biasness, and I don't want to discuss some of those topics, right? You know that not in Sri Lanka much, but when it comes to Western countries, there are a lot of, they are talking about gay marriages, right? Right, same-sex marriages, etc. So therefore, they are heavily sensitive to this gender biasness, right? Gender biasness. So even simple things like user error message, user manual, if we refer frequently he, it might be considered as offensive. So then what about she? What about if the user is a female, right? So we have to think even things like that when we are going to work with especially European countries and stuff like that, because they are very sensitive to these areas, because these are developed countries, right? So they don't have the problems that we are having, right? We are having so many problems, right? These people, these countries are developed now. Now their problems are these. So that is why we have learned these activities, right? Whether it's he or she, right? So anyway, when you are working with these clients, when you are working with these businesses, we have to think about even these small things as well. Okay, so that is the gender biasness issue, right? Right. So let's complete the social context and finish today's session. Right. So another uh, area related to social context. So the social informatics is cyber technologies and democracy, right? Cyber technologies and democracy. Now people are heavily using internet. So that is what is called cyber technologies, internet, world wide web, social media, right? So those things have the use of, especially social media, has direct effect on democracy, right? Democracy. So democracy is the people's voice, right? So people elect the rulers, right? So that is called democracy. So especially the social media has positively affect the democracy, right? So now citizens have more voice power, right? So they have voice power, more voice power, right? So they can have their profile, they can post something, they can post to the groups, right? They can share the common views, and also we have more opportunities to organize campaigns, right? So there are so many campaigns happening in the cyber using cyber technologies, right? So so if you just create a group for some common objectives, maybe in 1 week's time, maybe 1 lakh of people are in the group, maybe just 50,000 people in there. So then you can do those things for good things as well. Right? So that is why the cyber technologies are affecting the democracy. So that is why the governments are also very sensitive to the social media. Right? So in the social media, there are some big uh, opposition. So the government always try to rectify those things, try to rectify, at least they try to hear those concerns, right? Because they know that next time when they go for an election or whatever, this is going to affect their result. So that is why, so the cyber technologies are really affecting the democracy in good way. At the same time, it can affect bad way as well, especially people can use internet and social media for the false political propaganda, right? Spreading hate speech, right? Especially the ethnic conflicts and stuff like that. So likewise, it can be used for bad things as well. So you can see that cyber technologies has effect both good way and bad way. And of course, in the use, the people are aware, they can use only the good ways and get rid of bad ways, right? So as IT people, you must take that leadership. You must take that leadership and make others also aware that why these things are happening. So don't become a victim of these kind of things, right? So take advantage of these good things. Then we can change the society, right? We can change the society because the ICT people are the people who are going to take the leadership role in the future. Okay, so that is whether you like it or not, that is going to happen, right? That is already happening, right? So another topic we want to discuss as social informatics is jobs in ICT era, right? Jobs in ICT era. So some of the traditional jobs are eliminated, of course, right? So some of the traditional jobs are getting eliminated and getting less and less opportunities in those jobs, right? So like banking sector, now you can see that in the banks, money deposit, money withdraw, everything is done by machines, right? So now they just you need back end office few people only, right? Traditional clerical jobs, right? A lot of government jobs are going to be loose in the future because those are just clerical jobs, right? Just submitting something, doing, now we can do online payments also, right? So those kind of traditional jobs are going to be eliminated, right? And new jobs are going to be created, right? New set of jobs are going to be created, and also some roles of the some jobs are also changed, right? Role of manager, even role of a teacher, right? Role of administrator are going to be changed, and new set of jobs are emerging, right? Software development jobs, data analysis, cyber security, due to business process outsourcing, new set of jobs are coming. So likewise, while new set of jobs are coming, some old set of jobs are, I'm not saying that they are completely eliminated, but the number of opportunities are getting less and less. So that is also something we have to understand when it comes to social informatics, right? Social informatics means effect of ICT for the society, right? So this is a big thing, right? So this is a big issue, not a issue, in a way opportunity, in a way issue, right? So if you are still looking at these old traditional jobs, you are going to be in trouble, right? So you have to look for these new things now, right? So few more aspects are mentioned here, like now the people get more time for leisure, right? So that is another thing, right? Because of the ICT, especially in developed world, they are now reducing the working hours, right? So especially Scandinavian countries like Norway, Sweden, they are now cutting down the number of hours from 8 hours to some countries they have already reduced it to 6 hours, right? Already reduced it to 6 hours. Why? When the things are done by the systems, we don't want the people to keep working on the officers, right? Because if things are happening, right, if all the banking things are happening using online transaction, why we want our banking staff stay at till the 7 o'clock, right? So because everything can be done from the outside. So now they are seriously cutting down the working hours, right? When I say they, the culture developed countries, right? So our kind of countries, we try to increase the number of hours, right? So we just want to stay people. We don't look at the productivity. We just look at what they do, right? What they do. But developed countries, they look at what is the outcome, right? What is the outcome? If it is done by system, we don't want our people to work there. So that is the attitude, right? And also need of less traveling, like online shopping, remote working, attend meetings, seminars, classes online. So those are also happening, right? So those are also social aspects, right? So now people try to do less traveling, right? So rather than you go on shopping, you can do shopping online, right? Rather than going for the office, they try to find out, can I do that work from home? Rather than attending a class, can I attend online class? So those things are going to be reality gradually. These things are going to be reality. Whether you like, whether you don't like, this is the reality, right? This is the reality, right? So best thing is you try to adapt with the new situation, right? Otherwise, you are going to be a loser, right? You are going to be a loser. So if you want to be a winner, you must change with the change in the society, change with the trends, change with the technology, right? So you can't just resist to it, right? So yeah, so two more slides only. So issues in using internet and social media, right? So this is another topic that we have to cover. So there are some security concerns, right? So this is the use of internet and social media, because now the society is heavily using internet and social media. Now there are some new security concerns like hacking, identity theft, right? Phishing, spreading viruses. So we have to think about those things, right? So we, because when people are spending more and more time online, doing more and more online payments, etc., we have to aware of those things, right? Especially ICT people, we have to aware of these things, and we have to fix those possible issues, and also we have to make educate other people on these issues, right? uh, because they don't have the visibility as the ICT people has, right? So you have security as a subject, but not everyone is having that kind of a visibility, right? So that is another challenge, right? Another challenge is some social concerns, right? Some social concerns like cyberbullying. So these are heavily tested in your exam paper as well, right? Cyberbullying, cyber stalking, sexual predators, uploading inappropriate material, spreading hate-based and racism and religious fractions, right? So support terrorism using internet and social media. So all those are new social concerns, right? So we'll take just briefly one by one. So cyberbullying means harassment torment or humiliation or threatening of one minor by another minor or group of minors. So minor means kids, right? Kids. So they, rather than teasing or humiliating in the physical world, they use the social media and other modes to do that. So if it is the case, we say that it is cyberbullying, right? Cyberbullying. So cyberbullying is a real concern because of course we can tolerate it, right, as adults, but if someone is still at age 16, 17, so sometimes they get really nervous and they get really depressed, right? So when these kind of things are done publicly, social media, etc. So that is called cyberbullying. Cyber stalking means doing the same thing, that is sort of bullying or threatening or humiliating, but it is using internet and social media, but it is done by adults. So in that case, we say it is cyber stalking. So that is the only difference between the two terms. But the motivation will be different, like political motives, jealousy, revenging, and stuff like that. Whereas cyberbullying will be just because they are not aware of the seriousness, so they are just doing it for fun or whatever, right? Then the sexual predators, right? So people can use internet to somehow convince another person for sexual kind of things and record those things and threat another party saying that I am going to expose this to the social media. So that is called sexual predators. So we have those issues in the society, right? Because some people are not aware of these possibilities, uploading inappropriate materials, especially the sexual oriented things, violence related things. Right, in Sri Lanka, we are heavily seeing more than the sexual materials. Sri Lankan people really enjoy uploading violence related materials, right? Violence related materials. When someone is the terrorist attacks, right? If if there's something like a accident, they just share those things, right? So that is also issue in using internet and social media, right? Spreading hate speech, right? Racism and stuff like that. So if you go to social media like Facebook, sometimes half of the posts are related to these things, either racism or some other religion related fractions. So those are the I don't know. Those are the interest of most of the people in countries like Sri Lanka, right? So while others are just sharing some interesting things, some funny things, right? Some kind of things, our people are sharing those kind of racism, right? Religions, fractions, kind of things. So those are becoming issues in countries like us. And also, some people openly support terrorism or secretly support terrorism using internet and social media. So those are some common social concerns or social issues. Okay. Right. So we'll stop at this point. Right. So next we are going to do organizational context. Then some how to practice professionalism, like especially professional bodies, their code of conducts and stuff like that. We are going to discuss, and then we will be moving to uh, the legal aspects like intellectual properties, computer crimes, and also civil liberties and stuff like that. And next time we will be able to finish those things because those things are not lengthy and doing some past papers. If we can't do the past papers, we will take the past papers as a third session. So maximum we are going to have two more sessions. Okay, right. So we will stop at this point. So I just wanted to take only 2 hours, but it took almost 3 hours. But next time we'll try to make it only 2 hours and maybe just another 1 hour past paper session and finish it. Okay, right. So we'll stop at this point. Right. Thank you.